Boo! Welcome, Rumbler Nation, back again. It's your boys, Ryan and Spencer. We're here on Halloween afternoon, going into a terrifying, frightening night for all of you. I hope you guys are getting scared out there, getting some candy, enjoying the holiday. But we have a collection of frightening trade deadline moves to go over with you today. So, Ryan, let's get into it and roll that intro.
All right.
So we're back here, and Ryan, I have to say, man, I'm on cloud nine. This was probably the best week of football I remember in quite some time of the
Yeah.
whole season, hands down. I love
Yeah.
this week. So many storylines, and I told you guys last week on the pod, I thought that this trade deadline would be one of the most active we've seen in quite some time. And up to this point, Ryan, I think we're only maybe 30 minutes away from it locking in.
Yep.
We
About
are
2:00 here, my time.
it did not disappoint. We've had a ton of movement, a ton of storylines to get into, and I'm very excited to go into the breaking news segment. Strap in, folks. We might have a little bit of a longer episode today because there's just so much to get to.
Yeah, I figure, since it is the trade deadline and there's been a lot of action happening, we want to make sure to be able to cover everything. That's something that's very important to us. So yeah, why don't we go ahead here and let's just get into the news, shall we, my friend?
Let's do it.
We've got plenty to cover.
Mm-hmm.
Beginning off here, this was kind of a a logistical challenge for us as we were getting ready to film today, because every time we were getting ready, like just trying to prep some new stuff, we would get another alert that another trade went down and we had to add another graphic. This is
Yeah.
as up to date as we could get it
Mm-hmm.
at the time of this recording. Starting off here, Spencer, we have got the one, the only Chase Young heading over to San Francisco to help shore up that already disgusting D line for a mid-round pick, according to sources. Yeah, man. What are your thoughts on this? San Francisco, I did not expect as a landing spot. You and I talked a little bit about as it was happening, why you think it makes a lot of sense. But this was not a team to me that screamed that they needed D line help. So this move was a little bit surprising to me. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's not a question of do you need it; it's do you want it, and
Well, the
you have to
price is
think
so
about.
cheap.
Yeah, and to lock it in, he said, or Ryan said mid-round pick. To be clear, folks, it is a third rounder. It's been confirmed. That was approximately that trade price we expected for Young. Obviously, the extension that he's coming up for is going to factor into this, but the 49ers are one of those teams that are uniquely equipped to afford an extension for Young if he balls out and does what he's supposed to. In terms of the long-term future, I don't know about the implications of paying top of the market deals to two ends on the same roster.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's worked in the past, I suppose, but again, we talked about it with Purdy. We've been critics of Purdy, like a majority of the world has these last 3 weeks, that they've
Right.
taken, 3 L's in a row. But that being said, I think Purdy does enough for them to get the job done when they are at full strength in terms of lack of injuries. And that being said, Purdy's biggest value to this roster by far is the value that he is at his price point, which is next to nothing in
It's
NFL
a very good
terms.
point.
And at the end of the day, that is why the 49ers, by some outlandish fact, came into the season with the most cap space in the entire NFL,
Right.
despite and signing the Bosa extension did change that. I don't know if they lead any longer. That was quite a bit of cheese they had to give up to him. But that being said, getting into the football aspect, Ryan, at the end of the day, my first reaction was, I feel, and I've expressed on this podcast a few times, that, the secondary is the major concern for the 49ers, if you ask me. There's no denying an increase in the performance of that front four and getting after the quarterback. It makes the job of these corners and safeties easier. So, it's a roundabout way of helping out the overall defense get back to that dominant level that we're used to seeing from them. And it's honestly hard to hate the move, Ryan. You give up the third, you get a full rest of the season to get a look at Chase, decide if you want to extend him. And at the end of the day, when you look at the overall depth of that D line, excuse me, the starting four specifically, right? You had Hargrave, Armstead, Bosa on the end. At the end of the day, Randy Gregory, who they did get in a, I believe, trade from the Cowboys as well, not too long ago. He was that
from Denver,
kind of,
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he was splitting time on the other side of Bosa. But, Bosa attracts so much double teams. The person on the other side often gets just one-on-one looks. And that being the weak point, if you could call it that, they had a good rotation of guys on that edge. Specifically with the borderline breakout of a young guy like Drake Jackson. I think he may have picked up an injury, which could have led to this to some degree. But at the end of the day, bookending a guy like Bosa with Chase and knowing the kind of quality opportunities Chase Young will get with all of these other threats around him, again, it's really, really hard to say anything other than, wow, this is an excellent move for the 49ers. And generally, when it comes to team building, Ryan, when you are a deep playoff run type of roster, like they're looking to be a Super Bowl contender through and through, when you have a major strength, going out and just saying, going full Stallone and saying over the top, I'm fine with that. Make your strength
Certainly.
into the biggest strength. I think I said before on this pod, like, oftentimes the team that wins the Super Bowl is the team with the most dominant individual position group, whether that be the cornerback or the secondary itself or your front seven. And I think that was kind of what we saw with Philly. They won the Super Bowl, or they didn't win the Super Bowl, but they went to the Super Bowl because of how dominant their front seven was. It was the most dominant front seven in the entire NFL that year. And no, they didn't win, but you go for that reason generally. You just have a world-beating unit that can come up big in those giant moments. And, it's hard to look at the combination of Bosa, Armstead, Hargrave, Chase Young with Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner filling those gaps.
It's disgusting.
Yeah, it's filthy.
The thing that I'm thinking about as you're sort of giving your take on this is that if there was one, like, to me, there are the upper echelons of the league, right? Which on the NFC side of the conferences is the Eagles and the 49ers. And the one thing that really set the Eagles apart from everyone was the fact that their D-line was, in my opinion, still far and away better than even the Niners D-line, which is one of the most elite units in the NFL. So, in retrospect, it might be, at first glance to say, well, they already had a strong D-line. Why make the move to make this happen? But I think that this is maybe a move to close that gap between them and the other top talent in the NFC, because I think that there's a very likely scenario, despite the fact that the Niners have dropped a few games in a row, those teams are going to meet each other in the playoffs at some point. And, if you get to that point, then you really want to be bringing fire with fire, so to speak. Whether it be shoring up the run game or specifically in pass rush, this is a theme that I think we're going to get into a little bit later with some of the clips that we're bringing today. This is just a complete way to break the game, as we will see in the future of this episode. Yeah, I love this. And not only that, but what is the number one problem that the 49ers have faced through the last few years when they've been contenders, Spencer? It's the fact that They are a glass cannon, to borrow Brett Coleman's terminology. They are an insane roster on paper, but nobody can stay healthy. So if you can grab a guy for a mid-round pick, not take a kicker with that pick, that third round pick, just trade it for Chase Young. Why not? It's especially with a team that has had a lot of injury issues in the past. This just makes a lot of sense to me. And the rich get richer, it seems.
The rich get richer. One more thing I would expand on too as well with the decision to bring Chase in is that if you look around this division, specifically, not just the division, the conference, I would say in the NFC, the teams that are at that, that height of their powers right now, those teams we consider to be true contenders in a division that a lot of people feel is up for grabs right now with the way, Philly has put out some dominant things, but they've also kind of fallen short in positions where we maybe thought they should have excelled. Every team that's at the top of the conference right now has their weaknesses. There's no doubt about that. And then you see moves like, which we'll transition to in a moment here, Seattle, they go and get in my opinion, a top 15 talent at his position on the interior. You see a team like the Lions today, they go and get Donovan Peoples-Jones to add to an already pretty fantastic receiving unit, in my opinion. And then you see a team like Philly, they go and pull that steal of a trade for Kevin Byard, shoring up a weaker position for them at safety. At the end of the day, these teams in the NFC, the overall theme and trend that everybody is getting and feeling themselves is this thing is up for grabs, and there is a variety of factors and characters going all in to try and get there. And
Right.
It's fascinating. It's really turning into an arms race in the NFC right now, and it's going to make for some excellent football.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say, before we touch on this next one, can we just skip to the Seahawks acquisition since we just talked about it?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I just think they go hand in hand, and I think that the two need to be addressed back to back, honestly. Yeah, so that being said, we'll transition to this next news point here. I just talked about it. The Seahawks go after Leonard Williams. This, to me, is the kind of setup to the Chase Young deal occurring, right? Everybody knows right now that the 49ers and the Seahawks are in a neck-and-neck sprint to the finish to finish number one in this division. We're coming off of a week. It's a reason that I'm glowing. I'm so happy about the outcome of this week. Seattle was able to get that win against the Browns, and that was able to propel them alongside that loss, the third straight loss for the 49ers. They are now number one in the division for the NFC West.
First place, baby.
And, I don't want to gloat too much about it because there's a lot more football left to be played. But
Sure.
That being said, I think when you have as much success with the young core as you've had on Seattle's defensive side of the ball, right? Everybody's rolling. The young guys are stepping up and doing even more than they were probably expected to do when they were brought in.
Right.
Everything points to, at least on the defensive side of the ball for Seattle, they're ahead of schedule in terms of the way that they're projecting that. And, you could have very well stood pat coming into this deadline. You could have said, I like where we're at. Even with the Uchenna Nwosu injury, he may be back for playoffs. I think that's a bit of a long shot, but it's still a big loss. He's a big-time leader, arguably
Without a doubt.
Arguably the best pass rusher on the roster, maybe the second best now that Boye Mafe has ascended to what he has ascended to. But
we'll talk about Mafe.
Right, we'll get into that. But at the end of the day, I love the aggression from Seattle with this move. The same way I can't slight the Niners, the aggression in return. That's why I think this move from Seattle to go again get Leo Williams, Big Cat, as the
Right.
Giants fans and himself love to he loves to be called, right? But yeah, in terms of fit, I think this is a great fit with how he factors in. You can take a run defense that was already one of, certainly in the top 15 of the league right now with the way they're performing statistically. You can take that from a state of good to a state of dominant, right?
Right.
And that's really, since entering the league as a rookie, former 6th overall selection, Leo Williams, he has been an absolute stalwart in the run game. And as his career has progressed, he's turned into, a really dependable pass rusher as well. His versatility cannot be overlooked. His ability to pass rush from the inside and the outside, that's very Michael Bennett-esque versatility that the Seahawks love from their, defenders, specifically on the line. And at the end of the day, his ability to eat up double teams, that was something that really stood out with the Giants, is him and Dexter Lawrence, their impact and how they would just, absorb double teams from the offensive line, freeing up other defenders to get to the quarterback. When you consider all of the fire plays and just blitz heavy things they've been doing with the likes of Jordan Brooks, Bobby Wagner, Jamal Adams, obviously, Devin Witherspoon's been getting active in that regard. You think about Leo Williams absorbing those double teams, it's just opening more and more rush lanes for guys to get active and get after the quarterback. To me, this move really elevates the entire front seven and how it can be effective in disrupting plays overall.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself, Spencer.
But that being said, a bit of a damper with the Chase Young acquisition, because as a Seattle fan,
Right.
I'm sure we were in very high spirits after the Leo deal. That's an all-in type of move. That's a
It is
win-now
a
type of move.
D-line nuclear arms race in the NFC
That's
West
what I'm
right
talking
now.
about. We are in a not so cold war in the NFC. But it's gonna be, I will say, those 49ers matchups, and the Seahawks play Philly this year as well. Those are gonna be insane games to watch. Must see TV.
Yep, agreed. Speaking of the NFC, Spencer, we got more news today. All of this coming out today. We have officially Josh Dobbs heading over to Minnesota. In the absence of one Kirk Cousins. We'll go ahead and show the next graphic here as well, that it has been in fact confirmed up to this point that Kirk Cousins did tear his Achilles, which his season is done, first of all. And we talked a little bit about in our breakdown, Spencer. This is a contract year for Kirk. This is the last year of his deal. There are many speculating on social media that this may be the last time. Not only is Kirk in a Vikings uniform, this may be the last time that Kirk Cousins plays football. And I just got to say right off the bat that to go ahead and go get this guy, go get Josh Dobbs. I love this. I love this. You and I, we are big Josh Dobbs fan. We've talked about it on the show before. This is a guy that plays with his heart on the line, that makes good decisions, that keeps you in games. He is not a guy that you are going to win in spite of. This is a guy that can, potentially, with some development, with some talent around him, he's going to a much better situation over there in Minnesota. This is potentially a guy that you could start winning games because of, at least through the rest of the year. Now, it seems to me that there are people who still believe that they could certainly still make the playoffs, sitting at the record that they are. Whether or not I'm a believer in that is yet to be decided, but they're certainly not backing down. They have the roster and the talent to be able to make the playoffs. The fact that they've started 2-4 and had just one over the weekend was really surprising to me. I think we both expected their record to be a little bit better than it is right now. But I think that this is a really good solution. This is a way to keep you in the race potentially. And as far as a project goes, if this season doesn't end up, the season was already not going the way you wanted it to go, right? And as far as a project that's okay, where do we go after Kirk? If that's the question, I think looking in Josh Dobbs' direction is a really good place to start.
It certainly does feel like post this injury, if there was any chance that Kirk Cousins would return to the Vikings, it seems to be far, far less likely now.
Right.
I was actually kind of more in the vein of people who, did expect Kirk to re-sign most likely, because I felt that, the connection he had with Jefferson was a special one. And obviously they want to keep Jefferson around, I would think. Yeah, he's
I
been
would hope so.
Nothing but incredible. Even if you're in a rebuild, sometimes there's younger players that you do keep around because they will fit your window to some degree. But yeah, in terms of adding Josh Dobbs, Ryan, I think for the quarterback position, we talk about winning it in spite of and then winning because of. I think we need to set the boundary a little more now that there's actually some middle ground in between that as well, where you're neither a major plus or really a major negative. I think Josh Dobbs may settle a little more in the center there, but that's still a guy you'd like to have.
Yes.
That's still a guy that when you're playing mistake-free football, you're making good decisions, you're going to the right reads. That's a guy you'd like to have, especially when, your future is up in the air. You don't have to give up a whole lot to bring Dobbs in. And like you said, your season is not over because of this. This is a very winnable division still. The Packers have borderline completely fallen apart these last few weeks. The Bears continue to struggle. It's certainly out there in the realm of possibility for them to go and potentially still win this division, especially under the leadership of Dobbs. So I like it.
I also like it. Yeah, it was one of my favorite moves so far today. That was a very nice solution to a potentially disastrous situation.
I would throw in as well, Ezra. Sorry, last thing is just.
Oh no, that's okay.
There was a deadline deal today where they traded away Ezra Cleveland. And he's one of the better young guards in the league.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that.
I found that really head scratching because, like we said, the Dobbs trade does seem to be like we're not giving up on the season. We're going to still try to win now, or whatever that means to them. Right.
Right.
But then you trade away one of your best O linemen to protect Dobbs. I don't know what their thinking was there. I do understand that they signed Dalton Reisner sometime in the middle of the season, and he has been pretty solid for them. Actually, he looked pretty good on film now that I think of it when we were breaking down those screenplays last week.
Right.
But, that being said, Dalton Reisner wouldn't be enough to make me just say, I don't want anything to do with Ezra Cleveland anymore. It seems to me like that guy has a pretty bright future, and he went to the Jaguars, which I think is a really, really good get for the Jags. Yeah,
100%. Yeah, interesting.
That's a great buy low for them, considering, that the guard spot, you can always use depth there. And
certainly, I mean, maybe they just are that much of a believer in Reisner now that he has shown that he maybe is a little more versatile, has a little, maybe can get up the field and block a little bit better. Whatever it is, maybe they just like Reisner's skill set a little bit more. Felt like they could potentially let him go.
Yeah, fair.
All right, let's take a look here, Spencer. Some more news. We've got Montez Sweat heading over to Chicago.
Goodness gracious.
Sweating over there in the Windy City.
I mean, let me start, Ryan. There was a ton of talk from the Commanders about Montez Sweat and Chase Young were firmly on the trade block, either of the guys. Now, I feel like a lot of NFL fans interpreted that as, one of them will get dealt and will probably commit to the other, because there's no way the Commanders would trade both of their starting edges, right. Ryan? They would never.
Certainly not. I would never expect that. Why would anybody do that?
And yet they did it. It's interesting, certainly. One of the biggest takeaways, not even related to the player acquisition, I'll let you lead us off on that, but more so, Ron Rivera must have some serious job security that we were not aware of.
He had more job security than I even thought.
Yeah, I mean,
into the year.
I talked about prior that I thought he maybe needed to be on the hot seat a little bit, but at the end of the day, I really do commend the way he has handled the Sam Howell development. I think he's brought that kid along spectacularly. I do think Ron Rivera is a good coach at the end of the day. I just thought maybe, they're really talented roster. We talked about they poured so much money and assets to get their defense to where it is today in terms of the front seven and how incredible. Their starting 4 rushers are kind of in vein with the way the Niners are now.
Right.
But they have given up on that experiment in a big way. It's now Jonathan Allen, De'Aaron Payne, and everybody else for the Commanders now. So, look out for some draft picks on the edge there, but I'm not really sure what their plan is with this. I really don't understand.
Well, and I was thinking about it a little bit to where, like, Chase Young was a very high draft pick. There was a lot of hype. He did get that season-ending injury very early on in his career. There's just, in a lot of ways, it just really hasn't worked out for Chase Young there. He's maybe too talented of a player to sit on a team that, for one reason or another, it hasn't worked out there in Washington. Whether that be coaching, scheming, whatever it may be, it just hasn't worked out there. He's far too talented of a player. I think just what he put on film when he was in college, and to a certain extent, he has began to shine there in Washington to a certain extent.
I mean, he's been playing lights out since he came back for them this year.
Yeah, so it's just very interesting to me, especially when you have Sam Howell, somebody that, I think began as a project player, really begin to come into his own. He is an incredibly productive quarterback. He is a quarterback that you win because of, right? Like, he is a guy that will keep you in games. And who's to say in a few years he might not be one of the premier quarterbacks in the league? That may be pushing it a little bit. But I would just think that the future looks very bright, that this is a time to maybe buy instead of sell at the trade deadline. But maybe their thinking is that they can develop players, right, out of the draft that are maybe not going to cost as much. Maybe it could be a thing where they plan on signing Howell, like, if he does end up working out, if they have to sign him to a longer term deal, or if they're trying to retain some of that wide receiver core and the nice backfield that they have. They want to just, keep a little bit of that money off of the cap and move it away and be able to have that for future assets. Whether the case may be, he is gone. His time in Washington is over. If I'm Chase Young, I am pretty excited. If I'm Montez Sweat, I'm also excited. But maybe not to go to a team that is as detrimental as the Chicago Bears are right now. But you get that money off your books. You get a couple of decently high, mid-round returns out of that. Who's to say you can't scout someone and develop? Maybe they just have firm belief in their scouting department and in their player development. So
they got a 3rd rounder for Chase, and then they got a 2nd rounder for Sweat.
I would have wanted more for Chase than Montez. That's curious to me.
Maybe a little bit. I mean, Montez is definitely, I think, more consistent than Chase right now. You don't have the same injury concerns that you have with Chase. But that being said, in terms of, I want to go back to kind of his fit with Chicago. I think the reason that the Commanders decide to move Montez is because he no longer really fits their window with where they're headed in terms of the Sam Howell project and kind of how soon they expect a guy like Sam Howell to be ready to lead them the distance, right? And I think that's a big part of why you get younger, you grab those picks, you build for the future. I think it's certainly an admission from the Commanders front office that Dallas and Philly are in a race right now. They have this division on lock. We really aren't a true player the way those guys are, and we just need to focus on owning the future as much as possible. So I can't fault them for that perspective. And, the 2nd round pick for Sweat is good return. That's perfect value for him. If not, maybe a little better, you could say, but I think that's about even with his value. And then the Chase Young one, that's maybe a little less than I would like for Chase, but at the end of the day, the injury concerns do exist. But
certainly,
with Sweat going to Chicago, I'm a bit concerned with his fit here, honestly. I understand the need. It is a phenomenal need for Chicago on defense. They went and got the former Raiders guy. Geez, I always forget this guy's name. The edge rusher. Anyway, he did not work out. He hasn't worked out at all, frankly. Right. They had draft picks, one of which I was not so much a fan of on the edge, another that I was okay with. At the end of the day, this is still an area of concern, a huge one for the Bears. And I think, it comes off like a bit of a desperation move, considering why are you not doing the same thing that the Commanders are doing right now? Admitting to
Right.
yourself you're not close, finding those depressed assets, collecting more draft capital. I realize Chicago has a lot of draft capital as it is, but at the end of the day, I think that it's sort of a lateral move to more or less the same situation for Montez Sweat. He does not fit the window of the Bears at all.
No,
It
certainly
kind of
not.
screams desperation to me. It's like, wow, we just can't get after the
And
quarterback at all. Let's get
es-
someone.
especially giving up a second round pick for it.
Yeah,
Yeah, that it
you
the math's
you
not
could have
mathing.
had that player for his entire career, whatever that second round pick was.
Yep.
And time will tell. I could be proven wrong. To be clear, I think Montez Sweat is a hell of a player, so I'm
Certainly.
not wrong. Nothing against that. I question whether Chicago's front office has a crystal clear view of really where they stand right now and in the league.
Well, and it's a team, Spencer, that just has no identity, in my opinion, right? Like they don't know what they're trying to achieve on offense. I feel like they really don't know what they're trying to achieve on defense. I remember, gosh, it wasn't even, maybe 3 or 4 years ago when they had one of the best defenses in the league, and it wasn't even close. They really had like a true identity there. It's more of a win now move, I think, to give up a second round pick to go get somebody like Montez Sweat. If you're a team like the 49ers, I think that makes a lot of sense, where for a fact there's probably a playoff spot with your name on it, and you need to just shore up some depth. You need to get a guy that can go in there and wreck the play. It's just a bit of a head scratcher to me, at least, why they went out and got him. But for the Commanders, getting a second round pick back for Montez Sweat, getting that money off your books, I don't hate that.
I'll say this. Maybe I was a little over my skis a tad. I mean, he is only 27 years old, so that's not horrible. But I guess I'm just very pessimistic about the Bears even having an opportunity at like a 5-year window to contend or even approach something like contention. At which point, if you extend Montez Sweat, you may be at the very end of his deal before you're anywhere near sniffing like a deep playoff run of any kind. I don't know. I guess it really depends on how you see Justin Fields and where he's headed,
Yeah, so Sweat heading over to Chicago, bit of a head scratcher for us, but we've got more news, Spencer. If you'd like to take another look with me. We also have, let's see here. Get it pulled up. We have Grady Jarrett tearing his ACL, which is unfortunate for you Atlanta Falcons fans out there. He's somebody that surely you hate to see missing any time, especially in a division that is wide open and competitive. You really want to keep all of your studs in the lineup for as long as possible. You just really hate to see it. You had sent me this one, Spencer. Were there some more thoughts that you had on this, other than the fact that it's incredibly unfortunate for that run defense of Falcons fans?
It's very unfortunate. There's not a whole lot to say about it other than just this is a pretty major loss for the Falcons, a team that, again, as you voiced, is squarely in position to contend for number one in this division.
Yep.
We'll get into Atlanta. We're going to go over the game with them and our thoughts. But, yeah, I mean, it's tough. And unfortunately, it appears this deadline is nearly over as we speak. It doesn't look like reinforcements are coming.
Right.
Thankfully, they did go sign Onyemata in the offseason. They have some guys that they can lean on, but nobody really can replace what Grady Jarrett brings for the Falcons. And it's too bad. This guy's had a really good career, and you never want to see that.
Yeah, 100%. Speaking of reinforcements, how about Lombardi Lenny heading over to Buffalo? A little bit more of a help in the running back room for those of you that fell into the honeypot that is the James Cook fantasy season, Spencer included. This may be not such great news.
I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up on James.
But I got to say, Spencer, it's about damn time that Leonard Fournette is on an NFL roster again. I can't believe that it took until week 8 for this to happen. I don't know how it took halfway into the 2023 season for him to find himself on a roster again. Very happy for him. Obviously, I think this is a great fit, especially as the Bills are dropping some games. They might need a little bit more help in the run game, especially we know Lombardi Lenny's MO, Spencer. He gets in the playoffs and he's an absolute dog. What are your
That's
thoughts?
true. Yeah, I mean, I think it's great. Latavius Murray, I don't know if you knew this, Ryan, former Saint, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
is currently the oldest active running back in the entire NFL. I felt old myself hearing that news.
That I was just gonna say that made me feel so old just then.
I know. I remember the day Latavius Murray came into the league with the Raiders, kind of had his breakout. He was kind of, a little low-key fantasy superstar that year when he took the reins. And here we are at the back end of his career. And no disrespect to Latavius Murray, he's been playing great football for the Bills. It's funny that you bring up the fantasy thing because it's been a complete and utter nightmare watching the Bills play for me from that perspective because they plug Latavius out there on obvious passing downs far more often than they do James Cook, crazy enough. And that's because Latavius Murray is really, really good in pass pro.
Right.
To this day, he's good out of the backfield. He can catch it out of the backfield at a high level. But that being said, in the modern NFL, that is not a guy you want a whole bunch of carries on his body, a whole bunch of reps. And yeah, Lenny Fournette coming in, that's a perfect addition. He can take over that goal line work that they were loading up Latavius with prior. When you consider too that Damian Harris was a fairly big signing for them this offseason, and he goes out, who knows how much time he's going to miss. I mean, they had to stretcher him off the field, sadly. Get well soon, Damian. Love your game. But
yeah, truly.
This is a huge need. They needed a guy they could depend on in the goal line situations, a guy that can punch it in. And I don't know if there's much more to say than that. I mean, Lombardi Lenny, he's a winning player. He's going to be good for this Bills team. At the end of the day, I'm still pretty concerned about the Bills' future as a whole with all of the injuries they've endured on the defensive side of the ball. It's going to be interesting to see if they can get back to form in that regard, but it's a good start.
Right. It is a good start. Yep, absolutely. All right, Spencer. I think as of about 3:00 my time, that is all of the news on this trade deadline day that we've caught up with.
Yeah. And boy, was it a lot.
Boy, was it a lot.
Oh, by the way, before we go away from the news segment,
yeah.
I just found out when I was looking on my phone, Ezra Cleveland got traded for a 6th-rounder. Minnesota, what the fuck are you guys doing over there? I can't defend that move. Are you just setting up Josh Dobbs for failure? I want to say he's coming to an even more talented situation here in Minnesota from Arizona, and a situation that will be far better for him to play at an even higher level potentially. But what are you doing? Brain dead.
What are you doing? Yeah, that's moving on. Let's get to the meat and potatoes of this episode here, Spencer. We've got some incredible football that we had this weekend. And there are plenty of games that I am super excited to get into. Why don't we just jump right in, Spencer? Let's see. Let's take a little bit of a look-see here. First game that we have on our docket, we have got the Bengals and 49ers. I don't know about you, Spencer, but my thoughts when I was watching this game was that maybe this is going to be just the cycle every year, is that Joe Burrow is going to have a few bad games to start the year, and then around week 6 is when he really turns it on. They end up 12-5, 11-7, or 11-6, and healthily march into the playoffs. But Joe Burrow is officially back, in my opinion. This was an incredible performance, and also a not so stellar performance from Mr. Brock Purdy. As we have discussed many times on the show, we have seen some problems potentially. They've now dropped 3 in a row. But there was also this Brett Coleman tweet where he showed this 5-week stretch where he goes, I think the 49ers could lose 4 or 5 of these games, and they've dropped 3 of them already. So if you're a guru such as Brett Coleman, then maybe you might have seen it coming more than we did. But I was very excited to see this. I thought Burrow played incredibly well. Tyler Boyd finally getting involved in a way that he has not been up to this point. Still have CMC continuing on his mission to be one of the absolute best in the league to do it, tying the consecutive game with a touchdown record at 17 consecutive NFL games, which is bonkers. That is insane.
I don't know if it's wise. That that's the case, but
right.
Certainly still impressive. No doubt about it.
One thing I think you have to be really happy about as well, I mean, if you're a 49ers fan, is the fact that CMC has remained healthy and he's being as productive as he is. He has not missed any time up to this point, if I'm not mistaken.
For now.
Still a lot of football left. But yeah, very, very fun game to watch. In the first quarter, I noticed that there was a lot of Tyler Boyd touches. And there were many plays that Burrow made that I thought were very nice. There were some pocket escapes where, clearly the calf is feeling much better than it was. And it was just a much better performance overall. We've got some footage of this game for you too, but Spencer, what are your thoughts on this 49ers downfall?
Well, my opening thoughts would be echoing what you said about Joe Burrow. I mean, it was phenomenal what he was doing out there on the field. He was a man possessed in this game. Just an unbelievable. I didn't include clips of it because I had another point to make, but unbelievable scramble drills that he was running just to escape pressure, just juking out defenders and rolling. And there were a couple of runs where he ran with reckless abandon, just not even afraid of getting the punishment for it. And he was punished on a few of those. But I don't know. Again, I don't know if I'm happy to see that as a Bengals fan, considering his health is already spotty coming into the season. But That being said, he does look to be back to the Joe Burrow we know and love. So yeah, finally. That was really interesting. And then the other thing, which I think would transition us well into our clips, is that, Brock Purdy, I have to say, I want to come to his defense a bit in this game. I really think Brock Purdy stepped up in this game. I think he heard the criticism, certainly. I don't know how he couldn't. But at the end of the day, there were a few times in this game where he kind of shut me up in terms of some of the things I've been saying in terms of his downfield passing. I think there were at least 3 passes in this game, specifically 2 deep ones to Kittle, who finished with a really nice game here. And then another, I believe, to Ayuk, where, he had a couple that he really threaded, and they were not intermediate throws. They were downfield throws. So that's good to see. It wasn't enough to win this game. But that being said, I have no doubt when they get their Deebo Samuel back and they get their Trent Williams back, everything should go back to where it was to some degree. And certainly. It's if you were a Niners fan, I'm not certainly, but Niners fans should be encouraged by what they saw from Purdy in this game, in my opinion. And we'll get to it. The turnovers are problematic, and it's been a bit of a theme. But let's get into the clip off of that because I have a lot of thoughts to voice on.
Sure. All right. All right, Spencer, we've got some more game footage for you here. This is the interception that Brock Purdy threw to Pratt. I remember watching this game live, and it just made very little sense to me. I thought it was almost like a strip, from the angle that had it on the first go around. It seems like a clear, like little dump off to. Let me go back here a little bit. This is the angle right here. It looks like he would even almost maybe like trying to throw it away. But that is not what happened.
I don't think it was a throwaway. I believe it's Elijah Mitchell
Yeah,
In
he is
fact,
trying to get it to the running back there.
yeah,
It looked to me when I was first watching it like it might have been like a throwaway almost. It was a very weird like bang bang play when I saw it live. But even watching it back here, um, what are you even looking at? I mean, what a play from Pratt. Um, Heads up.
certainly some uncharacteristic indecision from Brock Purdy. I think that's one of the biggest strengths to his game is how decisive he plays. He always knows with where
Right.
he wants to go with the ball and what he's doing. But this one, as he rolls out, he's doing a bit of freelancing, trying to make something happen on the fly, and pays the price. But as you see here, Jermaine Pratt rolls perfectly with the plate, stays very patient, stays active in blocking off that passing lane. He sees it forming as it goes. And I've said in the past, Jermaine Pratt is a top of the line linebacker. It was a huge get for them to bring him back as he was a free agent this season. But really, this is why I said I'll be the first to criticize Purdy when he deserves it. But to me, I'm totally fine with the play design here. In fact, I think this play works quite like a charm. Most times they run it, but in this situation, Pratt is just on his P's and Q's and makes one hell of a play to reach up and snag that as Purdy tries to float it over him. I think that was really the mistake that Purdy made, and this is maybe a criticism that's valid to say with Purdy. Not the tallest stature as a quarterback, and
Right.
on top of that, changing those arm angles to try and float this pass over with enough speed to where it can get home on time and be caught. That's a really challenging throw to make. This is a Patrick Mahomes-esque throw that not a lot of
Right.
quarterbacks can really make in this situation. And then the stature thing on top of that, I think it really played a role in why this ball got picked off.
I mean, just a hell of a play from Pratt. I mean, this angle here, even when he's got a scope from the very beginning, even from the play fake, and then like you said, it sees the passing lane develop. He's doing a really good job covering Mitchell and putting pressure on Purdy in that situation. Like you said, just that little bit of indecisiveness. And Purdy is honestly very lucky that this didn't turn into a pick six.
Oh,
if
100%.
if he kept his balance a little bit more, maybe if he caught it a little more cleanly, this was a touchdown all day long.
Mm.
Yeah, really really nice play from Pratt. It's really great to see the Bengals defense, especially somebody in the front seven, because we've had a lot of issues with their secondary play up to this point. But it's really nice to see, especially in a game like this, when you're on the road and you get a guy in the front seven making a hell of a play to go get that football, and that was a really big play in a really big moment, and you really love to see it. You really love to see it on Pratt's part, and Purdy with just a little bit of. That's the first time I think, Spencer, I've seen him be truly indecisive, where he just didn't know where he wanted to go with the football, made the decision maybe a second or two too late. But it's those kind of mistakes that could turn into points on the other end of the field. So he's very lucky to get away with just a pick here.
Yeah. Well, and it's also, it's a designed rollout, so they got the look they wanted. It's just that, it's such a savvy veteran play from Pratt. You see him here. He's not pursuing Purdy at all.
Right.
He initially blocks off and holds the edge so that Purdy doesn't have the option to scramble for more yards here, because
Right.
that is an option. But instead, he plays the ball. He could have very well chased forward and tried to get the sack in this situation, but he knew the situation. He knew the back was behind him and played the ball in space. Rather, it's just a very very smart play from Jermaine Pratt here.
100%. And what's interesting too, Spencer, is this almost looks to me that this is where we can really begin to tell that Mike McDaniel is of the Kyle Shanahan tree, so to speak. This looks very, very similar to me to a play that the Dolphins run a lot, where they've got Tyreek in motion sort of as a distraction. They get somebody in the shallow, and then they kind of hit that wheel route. They love, love, love to do that. That's one of the bang bang plays in down there in Miami. We see something clearly that Kyle Shanahan also was wanting to implement, or maybe had passed on to young Mike. But I think the difference here is that, just the personnel wise, I don't think that these are the type of guys to be able to make that play as consistently as this. And also really great job on the secondary's part to take away anything over the top to force Purdy down, so that edge that Pratt set was able to be held. Maybe not dump the ball off somewhere else. Just very nice defense, red zone defense here by the Bengals, and really nice play by Pratt. All right, moving on to the next clip here. We've got another pick.
Yeah.
Sorry,
So the thing here, Ryan, that stood out to me is this is much more on Purdy.
Right.
It's a great play by Logan Wilson. I will say, Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson are one of those top end linebacker duos. We talked about it a bit before. I don't think they're kind of in the same really tier as like the Warner Greenlaw one necessarily, or the Ravens duo as well with Queen and Roquan. But that being said, Purdy here, I just don't know what he's looking at. Logan Wilson rolls with this play. He's right in front of that receiver the entire time. And the thing I noticed looking at this play, particularly with Purdy, look at his body language. Look where his head is turned. This is kind of a young quarterback error you see frequently. He is dead locked in on that read across the middle of the field. He doesn't look.
You mean this one here with Juwan Jennings?
Yeah. He. Well, really either. I mean, I think he's reading between the two, but he already knows who he's going to, and he's totally advertising to
just
the defense,
staring it down. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. And Purdy, he's going to have his young concerns. He's going to have kind of boneheaded rookie plays like this, but yeah, this one is much, much more on Purdy. Hell of a play by Logan Wilson. He's a great player, and he made the play. But what I will say is they don't feign a blitz with Logan Wilson. He's really step for step with this route the whole way, and I think Purdy just kind of had a brain fart kind of moment. Frankly,
Right. Yeah, it's just also very good coverage. I mean, even if you take this still right here, I'm not even sure where you dump this ball off, to be frank. I mean, this middle of the field here, this is just a mess of, the safety coming down. Even then, I mean, you've got somebody lurking on the check down here as well. I don't really even know where you throw this ball. I mean, maybe really, really well timed. You can get this ball maybe up over here. But it's just excellent coverage. It's maybe in a moment, because this was at the near the end of the game. This was right at the beginning of the fourth quarter, playing down. Maybe a little bit of Purdy being a little unfamiliar with the situation of having to pass the ball downfield to come back, to come back in the game. So
he's certainly used to playing with a lead, and
yeah, exactly. So maybe it's
go ahead.
Yeah, maybe it's just one of those things where it's just an unfamiliar situation, right? Like there have been not a lot of moments where he's had to play from behind. So in situations like this, maybe he's not as quick to make good judgment calls with the football. Because this is really also just sticky coverage.
Yeah, it's a bit of a side effect, Ryan, that. And then on top of the fact that you aren't fielding the same offensive threats that you're used to fielding. And this is kind of the side effect of what occurs when you don't have those wide open reads on every play. When Purdy needs to identify where to go with the ball, and there's always that option there, he usually finds it. That's what's so uncharacteristic about this. And I think it may have to do with the fact that the Bengals really tightened up on the Niners once they got that lead, and it was a lot harder for them to move the ball late in these situations when the defense kind of was able to pin their ears back, get after Purdy. They knew that they were going to need to throw the ball to get back in this. And I mean, just very odd to see him stare down the read to that degree. But
100%. I mean, even you can see the safety back here just completely cheating up on this, because everybody on that side of the ball knows exactly where it's going, because Purdy didn't go through his reads. I mean, the only other place I think you maybe dump this ball off is to Kittle down here. But again, in situations where you're down, one way to lose the crowd, so to speak, is to just be Johnny check down. But there's nowhere else to go with this ball. I mean, the only other thing I could think of is there's a lot of green grass here. If this is some sort of man or cover two, this middle of the field is just wide open. maybe you take off and run, get a few yards to get something out of nothing instead of just throwing it into coverage. But yeah, this was a very rare instance where I think it was just bad decision making on
Well,
Purdy's part.
they don't even appear to really have a spy on Purdy, and that's, I did say
This
I
will
was
be a good
coming to.
angle.
Yeah, I did say I was coming to his defense a bit in this game, and what I would say is, he did a really, really good job of escaping pressure and like extending plays in this as well. I mean, him and Burrow were kind of in a competition to see who could have the most ridiculous slither out of pressure. You see that front four,
Right.
I mean, they have him boxed in pretty well. I don't know where he should escape to necessarily as the play progresses. Maybe he could roll right there, but they had him pretty well covered up and dead to rights, and I'm not really sure he could have even got out on the run to throw this ball away either.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is you do have 57 down here who's covering this check down that valve to Kittle, but if he could get out, I mean, even if he can sneak through here at some point, but you got to be quick with the decision. You have to make reads in order to make that determination. You have to go 1, 2, 3, not there, go. You know what I mean? You can't stare
Exactly.
down one guy. No, everybody knows exactly where the football is going because if you're not making a progression, then you don't know to take off. But I mean, in cover 2 or in man coverage, look at the middle of this field, Spencer. I mean, take what you can get, take what they can give you. It's just one of those rookie mistakes. Even though Purdy's not technically a rookie, but yeah, just a very rare instance of some poor decision making that we're not used to seeing. That if they don't get that short up, is going to lead to more close games like this, where it's maybe decided by a score or two, and it's going to come down to some points scored off of the picks or the turnovers.
No doubt about it.
All right, yeah. So that was the Bengals 49ers game for you. Yeah, a really great win on the road for the Bengals. I think getting back to what you said earlier to start this our conversation on this one, Purdy did play well. There was one of those very famous like no 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 yes plays that some quarterbacks have to Kittle, where Purdy had to escape the pocket, ran to the side of the field, and made a dot of a throw
On a rope.
back on a rope over back to George Kittle across his body. Really well done. I think they both played well. It's just that Purdy doesn't have a lot of experience playing from behind, playing with some adversity. So now that he's seeing maybe the other side of that coin a little bit.
Yeah, all things considered, Ryan, that's the main reason I said, I'm weirdly enough, I'm in here coming to Purdy's defense because I know people are going to trash him for the turnovers in this game, but to be in a adverse situation as you described it, sure, you turn the ball over twice, but as we established, that Pratt interception was just a bit of a freakish play from the linebacker, and I think
Yep.
a little bit less Purdy's fault. It wasn't the greatest decision to throw it, sure, but it was a low likelihood of chance that he would have made that play, I would think, and I can live with that if I'm a Niners fan watching Purdy in this game. But at the end of the day, you eclipse 365 yards against a very quality Bengals defense. We did say that, they have secondary concerns. That's fair, but overall, a relatively encouraging performance from Purdy, if you ask me, even though they didn't come away with the win.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, just taking a look at the stats here. Burrow, man, 28 for 32. I don't think he missed a throw until like the third quarter or something. Joe Mixon had a very good day on the ground as well, averaging 5.4 yards a carry. Jamar Chase,
sick catch in the red zone where he got
yes,
absolutely smacked by like 3 dudes and
yep,
somehow held on to it.
held on to that thing. Yeah, Jamar Chase, 10 receptions for 100 yards and a touchdown. T. Higgins getting more involved and Tyler Boyd being more involved than we're used to seeing as well. And then Andre Iosivas with a nice little touchdown. Iosivas must be Greek. I had never heard of this guy. I'm not going to lie to you until he caught that touchdown. I was like, never seen him before in my life.
I've heard of him.
Oh, you've heard of him? Okay.
I didn't mind the pick. He was a seventh round pick. Super raw guy. Nice physical ability. He's a project, but
okay, cool. Well, yeah, nice win for the Bengals. Want to move on here a little bit, Spencer?
Let's do it.
Whew. Do you smell that? Do you smell that, Spencer?
Is the rock cooking, Ryan?
It smells like an upset. We got the Broncos defeating the Kansas City Chiefs.
No, Ryan. Do you smell what the Russ is cooking?
I do smell what the Russ is cooking.
Mm-hmm.
And it smelled delicious for once.
For once.
Believe it or not, Spencer, this was Patrick Mahomes' first road division loss in his career. This is the first time that the Broncos have beaten Patrick Mahomes. This is the first time in 17 games that the Broncos have beaten the Chiefs. Yikes. I saw this really funny tweet where somebody said, you can't beat a 17 in a row or something like that. It just made me laugh.
Was Taylor Swift at this game, Ryan?
She was not. They were left to their own devices, so to speak, as that one NFL graphic.
Why you think it went that way? No Taylor, no dub.
No Taylor, no dub. That they're learning that lesson the hard way. Spencer, from beginning to end, this was kind of a smackdown on Denver's behalf. The Broncos had an opening drive touchdown, which is very rare for both the Chiefs to allow and for the Broncos to have. In fact, it was the first one allowed by Kansas City in 13 games, first opening drive touchdown. There was a nice little screen pass there to Javonte Williams, who had himself a day. This, and to me, there are two major keys to victories for the Broncos for this game. They got the run game going early, and they did not let off the pedal. The run game was absolutely critical in this victory. Javonte Williams is finally coming onto the scene as a premier running back, as many have suspected that he was. And the second one was really I think that creating mismatches on the defensive line and generating pass rush from those mismatches. We'll get into that film later. But to me, those were the two major keys to victory here, is that the Broncos ground game was completely dominant through the game. And they were able to really use some creative pass rushing techniques to just create mismatches that really
such as
force.
You'd expect in a cold weather game, right?
Right, exactly. There was no snow. There was no snow on the ground, but the Colorado did get a lot of snow previous to this. In fact, I don't know if you knew this, but the Broncos Stadium has 20 miles of pipe underneath the field to heat it, so that there's no snow on the ground.
Whoa, I didn't know that. That's really good.
I also didn't know that. They were talking about that on the broadcast. Yeah, this was just a really impressive victory. This is coming off the heels, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, when Vance Joseph's defense also put up a really, really good game against Mahomes the first time. Mahomes did, according to some reports, have the flu. Had been taking IV up to this game. No flu game for him. Should have stayed home.
I guess he's not better than Jordan after all.
No Jordan. Mahomes, no Jordan. That's his name. Yeah, very convincing victory for the Broncos here from beginning to end. I think they held them to there was like 9 points in the first half. Another thing that I noticed was that there was a lot of times where they were shifting Pat Surtain to be lined up against Kelsey one-on-one, and Pat Surtain was a major key to this game as well, because whoever they lined him up against was just a no-fly zone. And I thought it was a really interesting choice just based on framing and size, that they were moving Pat Surtain to cover Kelsey a lot one-on-one. But whenever Pat Surtain was covering Kelsey, there was not much happening. Really interesting technique there, because you wouldn't see somebody put like Sauce Gardner on Kelsey and see very good results throughout the whole game. That just goes to show how good Pat Surtain is, how actually insanely good he is. There was a couple moments where Russ is going to do Russ things, holding onto the ball too long. Like there was that Karlaftis strip sack recovery.
Who had a hell of a game. Karlaftis with 2.5 on the day.
Yeah, great game. But Denver defense was able to hold him to 3 points after that. Later on, they were just able to get to Mahomes consistently through the game. Just the pass rush was getting home over and over again. There were several moments in this game where Russell held on to the ball too long, but whenever that happened, the Broncos defense was able to hold back the onslaught in a way that we haven't seen somebody hold the Chiefs back in a long time. The 2-5 Broncos take down the Chiefs. Spencer, what are your thoughts on this game?
Well, my thoughts are, Russell Wilson has been playing much more like the Russell Wilson of old. He's certainly returned to
Had a great
form.
game.
As I will say, I did predict this. I did predict that he would be much closer to the Russ they paid for and bargained for getting than the Russ they had last season, and that's been the case. And I really love what you said about the run game, Ryan, because again, something that really, really stood out to me prior to the season starting. Sean Payton said before he was even the coach of the Broncos, this was on a broadcast, right?
Right.
He said, if I was coaching Russell Wilson, I would pull up film of every single touchdown Russell Wilson threw, and I would make sure that play was in our playbook. Right. and that being said, I think it translates to a broader point that what he's saying is that what the Seahawks were doing with Russell Wilson at the helm is a lot of what they're trying to implement here with the Broncos to get him back to form. Right. Ironic, I know, because Russell Wilson left Seattle to be the man, go LARP as Patrick Mahomes, essentially. And it's kind of funny to me, but at the end of the day, I'm happy for Russ, truthfully.
Same.
I was very happy to see them be horrific last season, but at the end of the day, I still have a lot of really positive feelings for the guy. I mean, he won us our first Super Bowl ever in franchise history. We will always owe that to him. But that being said,
on a rookie deal, that was nice of him.
Right. You look at his stat line here, Ryan. They only allowed him to pass 19 game times in this game.
Yep.
He was 12 of 19 for only 100 yards and threw 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, threw 3 tutties.
Yeah, like you said, Javonte Williams led the charge here. He has been, I don't know what happened since he had to miss time again and come back, but since he's returned, he looks just like Javonte, of his rookie season, and kind of just the phenom that he is as a running back.
Yep.
Running physical, running aggressive, running downhill, running dudes over. 27 carries on the day. I mean, they're not shy at all to load him up in this game. Not the healthiest per carry average, but when you get that kind of volume, the efficiency is bound to fall off a little bit.
And it was really interesting, some of the personnel decisions that they were deciding to give him the ball on. I noticed that there was a lot of times where they were running like an old school, like 2 tight end set, 1 wide out, but put Judy or Cortland Sutton out there. And like they were doing that for most of the first half, and they were doing it to really great success. They were able to keep some drives alive. I also think it's interesting here to note in the box score that even though Jaleel McLaughlin only got the ball 4 times, he still racked up 33 yards. That's 8.2 yards a carry, Spencer. I mean, if that's your third down back where you have to go in some situations on, third and short, and he's averaging over 8 yards a carry, you're just going to have some success sustaining drives, in my opinion.
I mean, I'm a fan of Jaleel McLaughlin. I think he's a great change of pace option for them now. He was a really good find as a late pick.
Yeah. Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy finally getting some life into them, it seems, especially in the first quarter, or excuse me, in the first half here. Jerry Jeudy had himself a nice touchdown, and as well as Cortland Sutton had a nice one-on-one catch in the end zone. They always talked about they were talking about in the broadcast a lot about how he's like one of the best red zone targets. This is a guy you really want to watch out for in the red zone. I don't know where they've been getting that, what year they've been getting that, but in my opinion, we haven't seen that Cortland Sutton in a while, and he showed up for this game in Kansas City.
What are you talking about? He has been a walking touchdown all season. I think he might lead the league at the position.
No, there's no way. That's cap. Let me look at this.
That's not cap. I own him in fantasy. He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 touchdowns on the year.
Cortland Sutton, if you are listening, I apologize. I was not familiar with your game.
He's scored in every game other than 2, and we're in week 8. I mean, it's honestly impressive what Cortland Sutton's been doing.
I was not familiar with your game, Cortland.
It's all right.
I am sorry.
I mean, it's pretty hard to not be down on Denver Broncos right now because we're just so used to more and more dysfunction. But yeah, Cortland Sutton has been one of the few bright spots on this roster. I was actually going to mention it.
Only 380 yards in the season. Maybe that's where I was getting hung up on. But yeah, 6 touchdowns on the year. Have yourself a season, Cortland Sutton. I'm sorry.
He's got the Lockett thing going on with Russell right now,
Right.
where that chemistry is a lot more built up right now, and Russ, he's kind of, when he's kind of freelancing, trying to extend the play. I just feel like Cortland kind of has the same mind as Russell for where to go, find that open space, and yeah, it's paid dividends for them.
Maybe finally building some chemistry with Russell Wilson over there in Denver.
Well, we're past the deadline, and neither one of them got moved, so
that's true. So
it's
clearly they like what they're rocking with. Spencer, I've got some really nice film from this game to show you if you would indulge me. All right,
I'm very curious to see what you have.
Let's transition over here. So we've got a nice little stunt here. We've got 93, who's going to kind of shoot this way. And this really nice stunt here from Zach Allen, where he kind of gives a little stutter step and takes it right to the guard. Creating a mismatch almost. You've got a really nice bull rush here from Zach Allen on the end of this stunt. Pushes him directly backwards. Also, Zero gets home there at the end as well, which doesn't help circumstances for Patrick Mahomes here. But you got to love this motor from Zach Allen here off of the stunt, just pushing this man backwards and folding into Patrick Mahomes. This clip is kind of cheating, Spencer. I know that we were kind of picking 2 plays each, but I saw these clips as sequences. Okay, so after this play, there was a really important 3rd and 17. As you'll notice here, we've got Surtain is just lining up in the slot there, and they've got him right on one-on-one there with Kelsey again. Switching to Kelsey in this 3rd and 17, I think, is tantamount to this play success. So again, 3rd and 17, and Pat Surtain is really able to sort of lock up just that maybe little cheap check down that they love to run that Kelsey can rip for a few yards here. And then the pressure gets home. Browning with the sack on 3rd down immediately following the sack from Zach Allen. Really nice look here. Look at this motor here. I don't know what the O-line for Kansas City was doing, but if you notice this sack, Spencer, it's really a sack by proxy, because that tackle gets beaten so bad off the edge that when Mahomes tries to scramble out, he just runs back into his tackle. Let me roll it back here. This will be the good angle. So Browning is gonna try to get home off the edge here, and he kind of gets lost in the sauce, and then Mahomes just kind of runs right back into the tackle, and Gregory is credited with a sack. Yeah. So following this play, really, I just really like that switching to one-on-one in the Kelsey there, just in situational football, right? Like there's probably one place where it's going to go where it maybe has most likelihood of being converted, and Surtain with a really nice job sticking to his hip like glue.
I can't quite see. Was that Baron Browning on the?
It was Baron Browning. There? Yes.
It was. That it really exemplifies everything I love about Baron Browning as a player.
Just the motor.
The motor, he never gives up on a play, and he's such an athlete for the position. Like, look at him round this edge. He nearly has
changing directions
dead to rights off the initial turn. And then, yeah, like you said, the change of direction, the ability to cut on a dime that he possesses. I mean, just a very special athlete from that position, and I'm very, very happy to see him get a sack in his first game back. I mean, he was just activated off the PUP list. Me and Cameron talked about that in our episode, or just a week prior, I believe. And wow, that's huge for them, considering the loss of Frank Clark. Pass rush up front has been a major, major issue from the Broncos. And then, again, like you said, I can't believe I'm saying it, but a little credit to the defensive coordinator here, Vance Joseph.
No doubt about it.
Getting creative on the pressure packages, running more stunts, especially against a guy like Mahomes. You got to throw different looks at him, try to confuse him, because we know how great he is at managing the pocket and evading pressure.
100%. I mean, this is a guy that it doesn't matter if you edge contain, it doesn't matter if you crash, it doesn't matter if you bull rush. He just seems to be able to wiggle his way out of it, find Kelsey in that little soft zone, and then they'll rip it for 24 and keep a drive alive. And I just wanted to note here on the following play, 3 plays in a row, Spencer. The pass rush got home. This was the last play from scrimmage from the Chiefs here. It was just a nice pass rush got home, followed by a Justin Simmons pick. You just really love to see it. Just a phenomenal defensive sequence here at the end of the game from the Broncos to shore up that major victory here at home. Take a look at the all 22 here. You got 2 guys in the 9 tech. You got Zach Allen back in there, and Mahomes tries to flush out, breaks contain a little bit, but that pursuit again, man, they just were on Mahomes the entire time and underthrows it. Simmons is able to seal up the victory. Just a really, really nice sequence of plays there from the Denver Broncos. So that was kind of cheating because I know I was only supposed to find 2, but I just couldn't help myself, Spencer.
That's all right. That's all right, Ryan.
Phenomenal.
Those are some very good 3 that you chose there, and I don't have any further thoughts. But I will say, to quote our friend Cameron, I love seeing Patrick Mahomes pissed off, and
no doubt about it.
It was a fun game to watch, to see Mahomes struggle and curse under his breath a little bit. I mean, the guy has been just so successful for so long. It's nice to see, to remind us he's human at the end of the day.
Well, I mean, my God, Spencer. I mean, think about it. This is his first ever divisional road loss. This is a guy that has more Super Bowl wins than divisional losses up to this point, which is just insane to think about. I have some more clips here of a couple more plays just of the pass rush getting home. I just want to give a big shout out to Josie Jewell. Have yourself a day, my man. I think this play did end up getting called back due to defensive holding. I'm giving you air quotes, defensive holding. It seemed to me like a Kansas City refs call. But just really nice play here by Jewell on these 2 plays, because he does get the sack here on Mahomes, and the following play nearly picks him off on the following play. Jewell here in lined up on the line, and another stunt, Spencer, if you notice.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take this back just a little bit. Yeah, you've got your D linemen here are just way out wide. Zero's playing the 9 tech, 54 playing the 9 tech, and Zach Allen playing just straight up on the nose. Maybe this guy's playing some sort of 6I or maybe 7 tech, or excuse me, maybe hard to tell. But then you got the 2 linebackers here stunting. And Josie Jewell just creating a mismatch here for Jerick McKinnon, who sort of goes after this first stunt. And then as Jewell sort of rushes the other side of the A gap there, it's just game over. Just throws him aside, gets home. Very nicely done.
Yeah. Josie Jewell's been an underrated player for quite some time. And again, to go back to the scheming of that, it's helpful when you can line guys up in that position where they're right up on the line that way. It's hard for Mahomes to tell whether they're truly coming home or they're feigning that blitz and they're going to drop back in coverage. And to have both your backers up in that gap.
Yeah, right, moved up here into the double A gap. And you see it more often than not that, these backers, they'll back off, maybe go to some sort of cover 2, play some zone, but they were not afraid to send the heat, and that's a major reason why they were able to come away with the victory here.
Vance Joseph, maybe he's hearing all that smack getting talked, came to play in this one.
And I'll just move this clip up forward a little bit. Just thought it was nice back-to-back plays from Jewell here. There's a little tip pass from the middle of the field that he was almost able to snag. Yeah, just great sequencing, great play calling, great execution by the Denver front 7. Major reason why they were able to hold out the victory here and put a stamp on their W at home against their former division champs. All right. So yeah, big victory for the Denver Broncos there at home. What do you say, Spencer, that we move on to our next game here? We got Commanders and Eagles. This was maybe my favorite game of the weekend. Really back and forth. I thought Sam Howell played out of his mind in this one, managing to keep it close. Feel like I talked a lot during the last one, so I'll let you take it away on on this one a little bit if you have some opening thoughts for us.
Sure. I mean, more of the same from AJ Brown. Just continues to be unstoppable, really.
Insane.
One place I wanted to take this discussion, Ryan, it's not necessarily, excuse me, on topic with the game itself, but I saw a post the other day asking, who do you think is the better receiver, AJ Brown or Tyreek Hill? And I think I got into this mind space of thinking back to when we had our little fun debate about DK being in
you
that
all
upper
should be
echelon
so happy
versus
you
a
were
guy
spared this debate, by the way.
I think we
Did we?
post
Oh
this, if
man.
I'm not mistaken, at least some portion of it. But anyway, yeah, against our better judgment. But no, the debate was Cup or DK, and I wasn't saying necessarily like I was for sure DK. I don't think I was kind of saying there's some nuance between the skill sets, and it's really more when you get into this upper echelon of receiver, it's a pick your flavor type of situation to a large degree. AJ Brown is 100% my flavor.
How could he not be?
Give me AJ Brown. Give me AJ Brown really over anybody in the league right now. I feel like I'm really to that point because he's your prototypical X. He's got some Terrell Owens in his game. I mean, his mentor Julio.
Teammates now.
A little bit of Calvin Johnson, even you could say. Just the downfield threat that he is, on top of the fact, just the secure hands, can run every route you can ask of him, is just as good of a yak threat to me as a guy like Cup. At the end of the day, yeah, maybe he's not the best route runner in the entire league, Ryan, but
doesn't matter if you can't tackle him.
I want a guy who I want a guy who can come out and just physically dominate games. A guy who is just stronger, faster, bigger than everybody else on the field. And AJ Brown had a ridiculous one-hander. I didn't pull the highlight because I'm sure everybody and their mother has seen this already. I figured there was more interesting things to talk about from the game itself. But yeah, AJ Brown, just a revelation at the receiver position. And now is the record holder, I believe, with 6 straight games of 125 plus yards in a season ever.
Insane.
Back. They seem to keep moving the goalpost on the yardage for that record. But regardless, the streak he's on is unprecedented in many, many ways. And I keep thinking back to the Tennessee Titans. When you look at, especially considering what Will Levis just
imagine
did
if they still had
DeAndre
AJ
Hopkins.
Brown with Will Levis right now.
Yeah, I don't know how you don't pay AJ Brown the bag. They are learning the hard way about keeping the most talented players at their position. You don't let those guys walk. And
he also had that one just ridiculous catch that was like double coverage where really, really great ball by Jalen Hurts, granted, to put it in a position where only AJ Brown was going to be able to catch it, where that safety was sort of closing in over the top, and I don't know, the corner was maybe a step or two ahead of him, and just the way that he's able to put on the brakes and just float like a ballerina and bring that thing down and all of that chaos. He's quickly separating himself as top 3 in the league. There's not a whole, I completely agree with you wholeheartely. There's not many receivers right now that I would take over AJ Brown. Just the consistency and his build and his skill set. He's just on another level right now.
And, in terms of just overall the game, Devonta Smith had himself a great game in this one too. For a long time, we talked about Oh, it's gonna be kind of a Lockett Metcalf thing going on where they take turns, they have their games, but it's never
Right.
at the same time. Well, not when you play the Commanders
Right.
secondary. They both had their way with the corners and safeties
Yes,
of
they
the
did.
Commanders. Devonta Smith going for 99 and a tut in this one as well. This was one of those games. I think I've said this a lot, and I hate to keep beating the drum on it, but Philly knows how to play their matchups. They are the best team in the league about creating a game plan specific to the opponent. They came into this one knowing the Commanders are nothing short of porous in that secondary right now, and they planned accordingly. DeAndre Swift only gets 16 carries in this one. They go full pass heavy, 38 attempts for Jalen Hurts, who stayed consistent, stayed efficient, got 29 completions on that, went for 300 yards, threw 4 touchdowns. Absolutely smoked my ass in fantasy this week, but hard to be mad because,
by the way,
that's
that
some
was
great
one of the
football we're watching from
saddest
those guys.
L's I've ever seen. But considering the fact that you're sitting at second place, I'm not too upset about it. But no, I couldn't agree more. They were even Julio grabbing himself a touchdown. I was also really impressed.
True.
Like we say all of this about how impressive the Eagles played, but I really got to give some credit to the Commanders here too for staying in this game. This was a really, really close game. It was 17-7 by 17-17 at the end of the third quarter. Howell was able to scramble and extend plays. There was notably that one at the beginning of the third quarter with the Logan Thomas touchdown to go up 24-17. He threaded the needle on that play. Really, really phenomenal stuff. It followed immediately by a absolutely naked Devontae Smith touchdown out of the slot. Really, really back and forth game. After that, there was a pick, and Julio scored the go ahead touchdown after that. Maybe the pressure of the moment was getting to him a little bit. McLaurin had back to back drops, one on 4th and 8 there in the fourth quarter, and then Hassan Reddick was just able to completely seal the game, put his stamp on it. Maybe was taking some inspiration from Denver there a little bit with the game-sealing strip sack after there was the Jahan Dotson challenge was lost. Hassan Reddick continuing to just game wreck. That's what he does. And then you sent some clips that I think I would have chosen the exact same clips for this game, Spencer. I think so.
Really?
There was a major tendency that went awry, and then followed by one of the most disrespectful tendency breakers I think I've maybe seen ever. Just so good. Great stuff from Nick Sirianni in those clips. Eagles improved to 7-1, and we're gonna take a look at as to one of the reasons why. Notable tush push.
Regular old tush push.
Good old tush push.
And the reason I sent you these clips, Ryan, the main point I was trying to make is I am very, very sick to my stomach of the dialogue surrounding the tush push. The ban the play.
That's so
it's
silly.
It's not football.
It's so silly.
I really can't get behind people that feel that way. It feels very much like an old head take to have. Like, that's not football. Okay, well, why isn't the quarterback sneak banned then?
Right.
And these are the same people that, let's remind ourselves, during Tom Brady's unstoppable run with the quarterback sneak, where he was just untouchable on the quarterback sneak, I think his percentage was something similar to the success rate of the tush push. But that being said, this play right here proves the tush push is not unstoppable. You have, prior to this trade deadline, one of the best front four units of the entire NFL with the Commanders. RIP to that core. But you got Chase Young, you got Montez Sweat, you got Jonathan Allen, you got De'Aaron Payne. These are some of the best players at their position, and they get the job done on this. Not to mention, they're obviously loading the box, expecting this. The linebackers and do a great job, rushing up those gaps and forcing this ball out. But really, that's the main point I want to make with just showing this play is that every NFL play is stoppable. I'm not in the business of punishing teams for team building at a very, very high level. And the problem with this is, you know, it takes being excellent at your job, Ryan, to assemble an offensive line like Philly has. And
Right.
to have a quarterback of the skill level of a Jalen Hurts with those strong ass legs that he has that can will him to extra yardage on run plays, it is not an accident that Philly is so dominant running this particular play. And I'm just sick of the excuse making. If you haven't compiled a defensive front good enough to stop this, then you probably don't deserve to win the game against Philly in these situations. Or how about play better on first, second, third down to not allow them into fourth and short situations where they pull this out? There are ways to defend this play. There are ways to prevent this play from even being a factor in the first place throughout a game.
Agreed.
And I'm just not here for the excuse making at the end of the day. That's not what football is about. You want to say that's not football? Well, making excuses and talking about how life isn't fair is not football either.
That
All right.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And if there anybody, this is like a companion to Brett Coleman's content, it seems. But when he's right, he's right. I don't know if you've seen, Spencer, the video he made recently on the tush push. But he goes into a lot of physics and biomechanics, and there's a lot that has to do with this play. There's a clip that was used in that video about Jason Kelsey talking about how they brought in a Scottish rugby expert in the offseason to sort of like give them some tips on this play. And he Jason Kelsey talking in a Scottish accent, he's like, there's nothing you can do to stop it. When everybody has got their mass moving one way, there's no stopping it. Which to a certain extent I think is true. But Brett Coleman makes the really, really good point that the way these teams are defending it is completely wrong. I mean, this is clearly taken from a rugby scrum, if I'm not mistaken. So if we just take a look here, Spencer, like, look how small the gaps are here in between the linemen. Like, they are just absolute shoulder to shoulder, almost damn near as scrum as you can get without interlocking your shoulders, which you are not allowed to do. And in football, like, you are taught from day one, low man wins. Look at this guy. He is on one knee, head almost in the turf, trying to get below Travis Kelsey here. But it's not even that. It's Dickerson and Mailata who end up, this actually just helps the tush push, because what ends up happening is that when these guys go in, like they're Brett Coleman talks about this, they just make a wedge, right? And Jalen Hurts is not running straight behind Travis Kelsey. He's falling forward on this wedge. So when you've got a guy who is down like this, you're just making it easier for them to just wedge you down and create space, and Jalen Hurts can go in there and fall forward. They're just defending it wrong. He makes a really good point about the best way to stop the tush push, because the Minnesota Vikings did try the tush push, but we're unsuccessful. Because the 49ers, they played it a lot more like rugby, where you don't get a guy that's down here on all fours where, it's just incredibly easy for them to make this wedge. Instead, play them on the nose, play them man to man like a rugby scrum, where it is your mass pushing against their mass, not where they're creating a wedge and driving all of their force down this way, where Jalen Hurts can just, use those 600-pound squatting legs to just thrust forward for an easy touchdown. There's also a clip where, there does end up being a fumble here, but even on New Heights, Jason Kelsey has talked a lot about how, every quarterback I've ever played with hates how I snap the ball. So there's certainly that element to it as well. This is not an unstoppable play. I'm really glad that we're talking about this. This is something I've wanted to talk about for a while, because all of this discourse about like ban the play is just so soft. It is such soft football takes. There is no such thing as an unstoppable play. People are defending it wrong. Please go watch Brett Coleman's video. It's a really great breakdown of this, and I think he's completely right. But yeah, I really like what you had to say, Spencer, that there's just it's in a high success rate. It's not something we haven't seen before. Tom Brady did this as well. And there are ways where you can, have people jump over the line potentially and grab Hurts before he can fall into that wedge. But they end up recovering the ball here, and you really love to see it.
Yeah, it's certainly a big commendation, badge of honor on the Commanders' defensive front. The fact that they had the combined willpower and talent to succeed against a team that is like generationally good at plays of this nature.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I don't think there's much more to be said.
All right, moving on to the next clip here. This was maybe my favorite play of the entire weekend, and I'm very glad that you sent this one to me, Spencer. We're just gonna roll it through. I thought this was so funny when I saw it live. This is just like, because there has been so much like just childish discourse about like the unstoppability of this play that Nick Sirianni's like, you really think this is all I've got? if it's such 100%er, then I'll show you 101%er. if you think you know what's coming. It's so funny.
I think the Commanders somewhat they got to pay the piper when it comes to stacking up that front. There's only one way to stop the tush push when they run it, and I really can't blame the Commanders for the look they gave them here, but this was bound to happen. And again, it's a commentary on the tush push isn't just this unstoppable play because of the nature of the play itself. It has to do with the coaching that the Philadelphia players receive on offense. It has to do with the scheming that they run, like you said, that really, really close alignment that they do with the offensive linemen, not quite touching, but as close as you can get. They execute this play at a very high level, and the coaches show off once again. They are very inventive in Philly. They back to the Doug Peterson era. With their creative play design, and Nick Sirianni is a different coach, but he's showing more of the same creativity. And when you have this kind of diversity in personnel between, the variety of backs you can deploy, great tight ends together with Dallas Goedert, they were able to go trade for Albert O from Denver as well. They have a very diverse skill set, and that allows them to do stuff like this, where you have a play that high success rate, the look you're going to get from the Commanders in this situation, and you scheme it into sort of an outside zone, just kind of roll out. You got blockers leading the way. You got Dallas Goedert getting downfield. He lays a great block to free this and spring this out. That's really the point I was trying to make with both of these clips, is that at the end of the day, this doesn't get done just on the nature of the play itself. This is high level execution from Philadelphia's offense and a high level of coaching.
100%. And I mean, kind of going back to what we were talking about, I can't tell if this is Payne here or not. But again, Spencer, I mean, like, look at how low to the ground he is. And granted, they are trying something new here. Look at just like how many players you've got here in this box. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then, the one guy out here out on the edge, they've been waiting for a look like this, I think, to run the type of play. Because, I mean, if trying it previously, like we looked at in the last play where, you're maybe more spread out on the line, not as, lined up personnel wise as maybe how you could have stopped it. Clearly, to me, the plan here is to sort of like, I mean, you look at the personnel and which way they may try to push this. I think, again, there's a fundamental understanding of how this play works. If they ran the tush push here, you create this wedge with Mailata and Dickerson, and, Hurts gets pushed this way. Tush push would have worked here. Again, I think they're trying to do something where they just plug up these holes and then try to use, sort of like a counter push, maybe this way, where Hurts maybe has to like fall backwards almost, or has to stutter step of some sort. But when you have a look like this, and it's just a perfect time for a tendency breaker, because everybody in the stadium knows exactly to what they think play is going to be ran. Ultimately, I think that it would have worked the same way, but just a nice dirty little, look at this. Look at all these bodies that have just fallen here. Immediately, you have 1, 2, 3 lead blockers to swing it out to the other side, and there's just no way in hell you're stopping this.
And again, Ryan, I would point to look at the scheming from the coaching staff here. They've loaded that right side they're showing a very strong front on the right side where it seems more obvious that they're going to, the middle of the play gets immediately plugged, Jalen will probably shift to that right side with those additional blockers and try to just force his way forward. It's all set up to make the defense load further to the right side and free up more running room for that left handoff.
100%. And I mean, even going back to what we were talking about earlier, if like this low man and this low man here, Jason Kelce is not the center of this play. It's generating this wedge. I get it. They're trying to do something new here to maybe force the play back this way, where it ultimately is just not going to be stopped, right? But what it ends up doing is just creating an opportunity here to, like you said, just show off the creativity, show off the tendency breakers. And if we were talking about how Brett Coleman suggested people play this play, not only are you going to have a better chance at stopping the tush push, but if everybody up on the line here is just playing nose up on the entire offensive line, and you try to do some sort of rugby scrum where everybody's sort of like just sort of stacked in and you all try to move your force this direction, not only are you having a better chance of stopping the tush push, but then you're not just getting completely exposed if they run a tendency breaker where there's nobody on either level on that side of the field. It's just amazing stuff out of Philly, out of Nick Sirianni. I would be so pleased with myself if I had run that play and it worked like that. That was just that's just phenomenal football.
The last thing I'd say before we cut to the main discussion here is just oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I lost my train of thought.
No, that's all right.
Oh, okay, so let me just say that again. The last thing I'd say before we cut to the main discussion is just that, the fact that they've shown this look now in a live game situation and scored off of it, I think also we have to point out it lends a lot of credibility to future attempts at the same play, because on top of just the immense borderline Sisyphean task of trying to stop the tush push, now you have to worry about one extra thing. What if they fake it? What if they run this?
Yep.
Or what if they have another look in their sleeve out of this that they haven't shown the world yet? It's, showing creativity out of this look and that it's not just this personnel means this play, having different options to go out of from it.
100%.
I think it's really smart for the future, and they're going to need to pull this off in the playoffs and pull some things out of their hat in the playoffs out of this look.
So. Well, and I love that idea because, I mean, just look at the personnel that you have lined up over here on the right side. You've got Swift, A.J. Brown, and Devontae Smith. Like, if you've got all of these guys that are giving you this type of look, this guy's just completely trying to low man wins, right? Everybody's just bearing down this way. You have one of these guys, one of your skill position guys, like make somebody think you missed a block, just leak out, just a little leak out. There's 100 different things you can do out of this look now that you've got this on tape. It's just so funny. Nick Sirianni has completely just started playing with his food, and I, for one, am a big fan. All right, coming back here from some film analysis from that fantastic Eagles Commanders game. I'll transition here a little bit. Let's talk about them Hawks. Had a major shift here in the zeitgeist of the NFC West for the last couple of years, and the Seahawks taking first place, taking advantage of that L from San Francisco, and snagging a very nice win of their own at home against the Cleveland Browns, who up to this point have been playing like the premier defense in the NFL. There's just a lot to be happy here with. I'm surely that you've watched this game pretty closely, but if you don't mind, I've got some stuff to sort of jump off of here.
Yeah, we said
you
can kind of take the lead on this.
Yeah, so one thing that really stood out to me, and that continues to stand out for me as the Seahawks continue to win, is how the young talent on both sides of the ball is like just stepping up in a massive, massive way. You had a really nice Jake Bobo end around touchdown in the red zone. Jake Bobo looking more and more every week like a very, very solid contributor, like somebody that is playing high above his pay grade. Really nice strip sack fumble also in the first half, recovered by Seattle. And then getting the ball out to Lockett early on. I think that's sort of the way that you have to do it, is you use the talent of those guys and maybe some more niche sort of scheme looks, maybe personnel looks, where there's maybe not as many tendencies to look at on film. Really nice end around touchdown from Jake Bobo. And then JSN performing very well in this game as well. Had a really nice chunk screen early on. Gino broke out of a sack for a very nice touchdown to Lockett. And Cleveland ended up staying in this one. Getting the ball to all their playmakers, though, was the MO for the Seattle Seahawks in this one. Everybody contributed in the first half. And Reek Woolen was playing incredibly well. Had a really nice. There was this really. I actually can't even remember what ended up happening here, but there was like a Reek Woolen pick and Njoku catch. Do you remember? Do you know what I'm talking about? It was like in the second quarter. Did that end up getting called a pick or a catch?
Basically, it was an overthrow from Walker, where it kind of sails over Joku's head. Woolen's in perfect position, kind of has a nice cradle catch. He has possession the whole time. What he does is he rolls onto his back, down by contact all the way. And then as he turns, he has the ball stuck in his arm right here, and he's going to get up to go celebrate because that's just the personality of Woolen.
Sure.
It's a bit of a young player moment, man. Like, it's kind of like that situation. Make sure you have possession. I think he may have heard a whistle, though, because maybe it'd been down by contact or been ruled that way. I'm not exactly sure whether they whistled at that moment, but basically what happens as he's getting up, ball in arm, Joku turns, sees him with the ball, and goes full on, Peanut Tillman punch mode to try and get that puppy out. And it did come out. But it was ruled down by contact, so he got the interception.
Okay. I just think really getting a lot of different contributors in a lot of different directions was the key to victory here for Seattle. Sorry to recycle a phrase, but I don't care. Get mad at me. Cleveland made some plays of their own. Naturally, this was a close game, 24-20, but this was a game where I think that was a statement for the Seattle defense, because this was a defense that up to this point I don't think has maybe been getting the credit that they deserve. Whereas the Cleveland Browns, seen as maybe, if not the best defense in the NFL. I thought there were some really, really nice plays. Maurice Hirsch from the Browns had a really nice tip and pick. And then Trey Brown, I thought in the second half of this game played really, really well as well. I think that Gino in certain moments of this game had some questionable decision making. There was a throw late in the third quarter that should have been a pick six by Cameron Mitchell. Later on the second half of the game, I think is where the grit from the defense really begins to stand out, because a lot of the drives on Seattle's offense sort of began to stall out in the second half of the game. Garrett himself, Myles Garrett got himself a sack. Notice Cross there just kind of got tossed to the side on that one, but it's Myles Garrett. What are you going to do?
I'll say this though, really, Myles Garrett is a guy you can never shut down fully. And besides that play, I was very, very impressed with how Cross handled Myles Garrett in this game. I mean, let's remember, against, as you said, Ryan, in my opinion, the best defense in the entire NFL with the Browns, held to the sack by Garrett. And other than that, Gino was pressured only twice in this game. Mind you, with a backup right tackle in there for the entirety, a 40-something-year-old Jason Peters out there sharing a little bit of time with Jake Curhan, I believe. But, I mean, I don't know. I really, the first thing I would mention, truthfully, and I'll give it back to you in a moment, but, there's this offensive line coach in Seattle. His name's Andy Dickerson. And this guy has been doing a hell of a job with these guys, getting the backups ready to play. I mean, the fact that I know I've kind of defaulted to that excuse for Gino's decision-making and the fact that, the offensive line shifting has occurred so much. And that's valid. I mean, it hasn't been perfect, but the fact that they've been able to hold in there and put together wins, put together key drives, they had a 80 something yard game winning drive against the best defense in the entire NFL
Right.
in this one with that offensive line shuffle going on. The position coaches on Seattle are really at a high level. Him and BT Jordan doing the work with the pass rushers, the level of play he's been able to get out of Boye Mafe and the folks.
We'll talk about Boye Mafe.
Yeah, I see a really strong future for both of those guys. I think Andy Dickerson could be an offensive coordinator candidate in the near future for sure.
Yeah, I just really loved how, again, a little bit of a theme here, how Seattle was able to close this one out. Had a really big play from Jamal Adams, which is lovely to see.
He said he learned that one from Messi.
Messi. Little header to get the pick there. Also, I wanted to shout out Noah Fant. Have yourself a game. Really big plays and some really big moments. There was that one near the end of the game with a really big play down the sideline. Seattle was able to punch it in with a screen to JSN with just 38 seconds left. And then they went ahead and went out there, and they were able to close this one out, getting a sack on PJ Walker, and with Darrell Taylor being able to close that one out with the sack on PJ Walker, especially with Nwosu out. I feel like Taylor is playing exceptionally well. This is a defense that is not getting talked about enough. I know that this is just warming your heart to hear. I wish I was able to talk about my team like this.
Hey, they have a good defense too, though.
They do have a good defense. Just some really, really phenomenal stuff here from Seattle. Spencer, what were your main takeaways here?
Main takeaways, that's a tough one. There's a lot. I've done a ton of thinking about Seattle the past few weeks. Just trying to see exactly what is the problem offensively.
I'm just now noticing the coordination of the throwback logo too.
Nice. Yes, I have to mention that. How deliciously
nice,
gorgeous did those throwbacks look in their debut here?
Looking nice.
Thank the Lord above that we were able to get a win in the first time. I don't know how I would have felt if we lost our first game in the throwbacks, but I had to rock the hat today. What I will say, I want to touch back on the Geno situation. There's a ton of chatter in the fan base right now about Geno's not doing enough. He's making bad decisions. What you mentioned about the near pick six, my dad actually was the one that had to point this out to me, because initially I actually kind of had a bit of that was a really ill-advised throw. And, you can criticize Geno for making the throw in that situation, but what I learned after the fact and what they said in the interviews was Jigba actually on that route, he stopped when he was supposed to continue his progression to the sideline there. And that was what allowed the defender to jump the ball. What I will say is probably shouldn't have been thrown in the first place.
It's hard in situations like that where the route calls for throwing with anticipation. We see that all the time.
Exactly. And just not being on the same page, with the rook, it's not to be expected to some degree. But I all in all, I love the way that they battled in this one, and it was a tough opponent. I have my finger on the pulse. I have my finger on the pulse of the fan base better than anybody, I would say. I mean, many people. And I don't think anybody in the fan base was sure that they would come in here and get the win in this one, and they did it. So
yeah, there were some tough scenes, but there was some really, really nice plays, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And I don't think you've seen these ones, but I did pull some nice ones for you. If you want to join me for another trip down film lane here, Spencer, I'd love to have you accompany me.
Yes, let's do it.
All right, Spencer. This is the Boye Mafe sack here. I thought this was really, really nicely done. Oh, sorry. Can you still see that?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. Really interesting alignment here is the first thing that I noticed. Just you've got like a six tech, and then like a wide 9 tech. This is interesting. I don't know if this is something that happens frequently. Is this a look that Seattle typically gives to have just such wide D linemen here?
This is, I mean, this is definitely a late game situation where they're trying to kind of put the stamp on it. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I can't see the
Right.
timestamp for the game, but I think they're in something of a prevent. But they are pressuring 4, which is a little bit interesting in a prevent, considering, you have to have a tremendous amount of trust in your corners and your safeties to get the job done in an obvious passing down, and then still sending 4.
Right. Yeah, I just really love the motor that Mafe plays with here. He's able to sort of give it a little on the tackle there, and then kind of just take advantage of the fact that PJ Walker himself, somebody that doesn't have a lot of snaps under his belt.
Worth noting too, Ryan, that boy, I think it's getting overlooked tremendously, but Boye Mafe right now is I believe perhaps number 1 in the league in pass rush win rate.
It's also his 5th consecutive game with a sack.
Yeah, he's been on an absolute tear, and it's refreshing to see one of our young, kind of not necessarily a project. He was a high draft pick. Yeah, there's a tremendous amount of physical talent there, but it's getting refined and it's showing up in a big way. And the thing I would say, there is some nuance to that pressure rate number. He isn't seeing the same amount of double teams that the top end of his position are seeing, like a Bosa and others, Parsons, Garrett in this game as well. But that being said, with Nwosu out, this was actually a game where they would have been paying him a ton of attention.
Right. Yeah, it's like I said, just guys that are able to be the next guy up and take some responsibilities for themselves, right? To take it upon themselves to make big plays in big moments. And Mafe has been playing at an incredibly high level. Glad to see that he's performing so well. Yeah, I just wanted to highlight, just have yourself a day, Mafe. 5th consecutive game with a sack. Very nicely done. I love the change of direction, high motor, great football IQ, sort of keeping contain on the edge there. And PJ Walker just in a near the end of the game situation, just has nowhere to go and gets swallowed up.
Kids putting it together.
100%. Move on to the next clip here. Alrighty, Spencer, you'll be very happy to see this one on here. We've got the Jamal Adams messy headbutt pick. One thing that immediately I noticed, even before, like when I was watching it live before the play was snapped, is this is exactly why you get Jamal Adams, right? It would have been nice to have this, maybe a little consistently for a little bit longer, but he's sort of like he's sort of giving a look here where he's trying to convince them that, I think, like trying to convince the offense that he's cheating both sides, convince PJ Walker that he's cheating both sides. He sort of cheats down this way a little bit, and then he'll back off to indicate maybe he's playing more man or zone. And he does this a couple of times. He kind of scoots up right there, and then he backs off, and then he'll scoot up again. Like especially with the tape that this guy put in, the games that this guy put on tape in New York back in his heyday, so to speak. These sort of corner blitzes, he set records for these kind of looks, and just how fast he's able to just get into the face of PJ Walker is insane. He's clearly playing at a much healthier level than we've seen him play in a very, very long time. And another thing, maybe the other angle in this all 22 will show it a little bit better. With this is Clark, if I'm not mistaken, correct? 57.
57's Clark. Yep.
Yep. So playing again this really, really wide, like 9 tech, and just really great, synchronicity. I'm probably using the wrong word with this play call. Excuse me. He fires off this edge so fast. Like I think that it's not even to the point of getting to the quarterback, but just making this tackle vacate this space. I thought it was really nicely done.
Yeah, I agree completely. And you
Excuse me.
know, in terms of with PJ Walker, I mean, if we checked his Madden stats, so to speak, his play recognition would not be the highest of his
Right.
stats. But at the end of the day, like, I think that's one thing to comment on Jamal, where he has really, really progressed in that way, where you're saying is like not advertising blitzes as much as, and like his record breaking season. I think that was one of the big downfalls for our defense as a whole. As well as he played and the production he had was phenomenal, no doubt about it. But it was, if you saw Jamal lined up in a particular look, the better quarterbacks in the league were able to pretty easily identify that he was coming on that one and account for that. Go
Right.
a different direction with the ball or roll to escape that pressure, prolong the play a bit. And yeah, I agree with you. I would definitely
Well,
echo that sentiment that he's doing a much better job of kind of making the quarterback unsure of his intent pre-snap.
100%. And I think that there's just some evidence here that these two are like this is schemed, right? Maybe it's even a look that they're looking for. Maybe it has something to do with the alignment of the tackle here, and maybe how far off he's playing on the ball, because there is that the belt line rule where you have to be lined up. And some people, depending on the scheme, they might cheat up, they might cheat back. Maybe it's a specific look, because you can even see right here where he's looking directly at Jamal Adams to his left, and he's got the hand up. He's like, listen, man, this is it. I got you. And then he puts his head down, and then look at this. He is lined up right now like an Olympic sprinter, like he's running a 100-yard dash. I think he has very little intention of getting any directionality this way, because even if I'll roll the clip, but if you see it, he runs almost 10 yards, or maybe it's 7 yards, just straight that way, and then sort of kind of hooks this way, and then it just leaves this side of the field just completely open. As you can see here, he just runs directly up the field, and then all of the space between the guard and the tackle there, that's just wide open.
Bends a corner. Yeah, no doubt about it. I think that's one of the biggest things I love about Frank Clark's game is just he's a gritty dude. I mean, he's gonna play exactly how you tell him to. He's never it's never an issue of effort when it comes to Clark. I mean, he's a dog, and that was one of the things that in his first stint with Seattle. That's something that got voiced by the members of the LOB frequently when we drafted him. Is that the kid can work his ass off. And that's why I'm
100%.
very convinced that him and his second stint here, a lot of people are talking a lot of shit about Frank Clark right now, talking about he's washed up. That's a 2-time Super Bowl champion, and he has more in the tank, and I'm very excited to see what he can do with another opportunity on our defense. The last thing I'd say before we cut away, and the last thing I'd like to voice too, just as a little taste of the future for Seahawks fans and NFC West fans alike, because it's going to be affecting them, no doubt. I want to reaffirm what I said earlier about the addition of Leo Williams here. Those double teams that he attracts, this is not your grandpa's Seahawks anymore. The fact that Leo Williams, he's coming out of a Wink Martindale scheme over there with New York. We know the first thing you think of with Martindale and his defenses is they are not afraid to blitz. And unlike prior Seahawks teams, which were much more set up to the bend not break kind of formula of the LOB and what they did, there was a lot of aggression in the way they played, but they didn't take as many chances. And I think that was a big part of why, Jamal Adams in his early stint with us, he got exposed in coverage a few times. And there were times where that blitz, you could account for it and counter it, and we weren't prepared to show quarterbacks other looks and to have a variety in the way we deploy our personnel. But to commend Pete Carroll and Clint Hurt and the way that they've gone about constructing this defense and the way they deploy their personnel, you have a variety of guys who can blitz from any part of the field here. You got Bobby Wagner is one of the best blitzing linebackers in the game. on top of all the other things he's great at. Jordan Brooks is having a phenomenal season getting after the quarterback, sending him on blitzes. Devin Witherspoon is a terror off the edge, the speed he can get to the quarterback at, and we all know the physicality he plays with. He can certainly shed a block. That's not even the end of the list, but at the end of the day, factor Jamal Adams into all of that. The reality is, even the better quarterbacks in the league, the non-PJ Walkers, are going to be confused by the looks they get from this defense. And then Leo Williams in there drawing double teams. I mean, I think that quarterbacks are going to be under fire from the Seahawks defense for the rest of the season, and it's going to be a guessing game on who's coming and who isn't. And I think that's a really, really effective way to play defense, to get elite quarterbacks off their game and the non-elite ones. You know, Brock
100%.
Purdy specifically, we said he's a very decisive guy. He wants to know pre-snap more or less where he's going with the ball. And when you take that opportunity away from quarterbacks, you take that first read away, or you send a look they weren't expecting, it gets in their head. They don't know what direction to go. You know, I mean, like Sam Darnold said, I'm seeing ghosts out there. I think you could see a lot of the same as the Seahawks defense gels together.
100%. Another thing I just want to point out here about this play, if I back this up a little bit, is it Jaron Reed or Jerron Reed?
Jaron Reed, yes.
Jaron Reed. You gotta love a big old 90 right here. Look at it. Look at him calling this play. He's running the ship, it seems to me, on this D line. He kind of walks up here and then he gives this little indication where he sort of like bangs both of his hands. Which I think to me is some sort of like sort of shift maybe of where these blocks are going to go.
Directing traffic out there. I mean,
absolutely directing traffic, because he gives that signal and it causes Brooks here. If you watch Reed here after he gives the signal, then Brooks sort of sticks his arms out wide, which sort of shifts most of the rest of the defense this way. Excuse me. Gives the signal, kicks out wide, and then what ends up happening is, even though he's lined up in like the one eye here on the inside shoulder of the center, he's going to kick out to the guard. This guy's going to kick over to the center, and then we've got Clark here, as we mentioned, just screaming down this way. It's going to force this tackle to kick out this way. This guard, if he tries to go over here and make this play with Jamal Adams screaming in from the edge for the corner blitz, he's either going to miss the play entirely, which he does. He kind of just throws his hands at him, or he's going to get absolutely blown up and he's going to fall backwards into PJ Walker. Just great stuff here from Reed. He's clearly directing traffic. The linebacking core kind of moves there. And as they all shift over there, it just really goes to show that you sort of draw a double team here. Tackle kicks out over there. And then eventually where PJ Walker tries to throw this ball sort of in the middle of the field this way, look at all those bodies that shifted over to the left after Reed sort of was directing traffic there. It's just, you really love to see it. Just great stuff from Reed.
Yeah. And Ryan, that's a big part of the reason that Julian Love is in position to make that interception as the ball drops
100%.
after it's tipped into the air. So great
100%.
commentary, Ryan.
Oh, thank you. You as well, Spencer. All right. And we are back. Let's transition a little bit here, Spencer. Let's talk about maybe the arrival of the season with Will Levis taking over
perhaps
for Ryan Tannehill.
Perhaps.
That's the smart thing to do, in my opinion. Taking on the Atlanta Falcons. My parents actually went to this game, Spencer, as I told you before, and I was telling my dad, I was like, what a game to go to, because I think Will Levis is going to premiere in this game, and I think you're going to like what you see from Will Levis. I have never been more happy to be right. What a phenomenal game to go see. So yeah, let's kick it off here. What did you think, Spencer? You sent me some clips on this one, but just how did you think this game went? What were some of the keys to victory? And what do you think about the debut of one Will Levis?
Let's start right there. I mean, Will Levis in his debut they gave this man the green light. I mean, I don't
Might as
know if that
well.
was even the game plan coming in, frankly. I think they just liked what they saw, and
Mm-hmm.
you want more of it, right? I mean,
Go do it again, and then he did it 4
exactly.
times.
And it's important to mention here, I have a lot of respect for what Atlanta's doing defensively. Um, it appears, based on the results of this game, that the Jeff Okudah experiment is not going well. Um, you know, I believe, he was responsible for some of these deep touchdowns in this game. Um, yeah, not the best game from him, but we know what kind of corner AJ Terrell is. Definitely one of the best at his position out there. He's fighting an uphill battle, I will admit, the last few years specifically, with just not a lot of surrounding talent. But again, the Falcons are a different team this year. They had a great free agency. They had good draft picks. They bring in Jesse Bates, for God's sake, the number one, we are
Right.
the number one stands for Jesse Bates, and not his best game either,
My
truthfully.
man.
But
Gone but not
yeah,
forgotten.
no, but between the secondary talent, you would have expected a better performance, frankly, against a first start from Will Levis. But at the end of the day, like I said, green light. Uh, Levis throws the ball 29 times in his first game as a Tennessee Titan. Goes for 238, respectable yards total for your first start, 4 touchdowns, unbelievable. Um,
With Spencer, I just want to
mhm.
mention at the beginning of this game, they were platooning with Malik and Will Levis. So this was 29 attempts after they were sort of platooning. Then there was that big bomb to D Hop. I think they brought in Willis for maybe 1 or 2 plays after that. And I'm sitting here thinking, oh my God, this guy just unlocked your offense. Will Levis just unlocked your offense. Why are you trotting out Malik
Take
Willis right now,
Malik
my guy? What
Willis
are you
off the
thinking?
field. Good and gracious. And
They eventually did, and he still managed to rack up 30 pass
we
attempts. So
lamented.
that was the 30 pass attempts with the
I
platooning.
lamented last week, Ryan. Again, I have not been I have not been a fan of what the Tennessee Titans plan has been here. I've been a major critic of them throughout the season. I'll own up to it. Um, but it's hard to deny what Will Levis was able to accomplish in this game. I mean, let's remind ourselves, right? They're not dealing with this vast assortment of weaponry on offense from a receiving perspective at all. That's got to be an understatement, frankly, what I just said. But on only
Right.
4 receptions, DeAndre Hopkins turns back the clock, goes for 128 on a 32-yard average per catch, 3 touchdowns.
Ridiculous.
The okay at receiver, but not a stunning, jaw-dropping talent by any means, in my opinion. With Westbrook Akine does get himself a touchdown, and boy, was it a beautiful one. We'll get to that in a moment. But yeah, I mean, they did a great job remaining balanced despite being blown away with what Levis was accomplishing here. I think the success that Derrick Henry was finding on the ground was setting up a lot of these deep shots as well. Derrick Henry was a handful in this game, doing Derrick Henry things. It's amazing what happens when you give him the ball consistently. 22 carries for 100.
And not only 100%, not only that, but like just what Will Levis can do for your offense for unlocking all of your talent. When he entered that game, D Hop looked like a completely different player. When you're able to bomb the ball down the field like that, then all of a sudden you don't have as many people stacked in the box to stop Derrick Henry. Even when you do want to run it with Derrick Henry, it's just really incredible, like the wonders that were able to open up for this Titans offense that looked competent when they all of a sudden had a quarterback that could slang that thing. Also, I just wanted to point out there was like a clip even that I was going to send you, not for the show, but just separately, that I am at my limit with Arthur Smith. Okay. There was a moment in the first half of the game where he just seems to me to be running the offense in a way that he wants it to be something that it's not. there was that one very weird play in the red zone where they were just getting way too cute with it. It was like a 2 or even a 3 tight end set. I think they had 3 tight ends in on this play, where there was like the tight end 3 was throwing to the tight end 2, and Kyle Pitts, the highest drafted tight end ever. I maybe include the tweet where I saw this because it just blew my mind. Why? He was lead blocking. Kyle Pitts is lead blocking. You're on the like 2-yard line. Fine, run a 2 or 3 tight end set. Give it to Bijan Robinson. Let him pound the rock. What are we missing here? Why are we trying all of this weird trickery? Get points on the board. Use your players the way they're supposed to be used. I'm just at my wit's end. I just don't really understand what the vision is here. This, to me, as a Saints fan, I love to be saying this. This is not a team that can win this division. When you're running its offense like this and you're clearly just incapable or you're unwilling to use your assets in the best way possible, really frustrating.
That's fair, Ryan. I will push back a tad, although I think I generally agree with you that the deployment of their personnel has been puzzling, to say the least. Not really, putting the guys in positions to succeed, things that they're good at. I mean, Kyle Pitts, I don't even have to continue the dialogue of his underutilization, but what I will say in defense of Arthur Smith is that it's not like he's exactly had a captain at the helm that he can trust to get the ball to the playmaker.
Ritter's not doing any favors.
I was optimistic about Ritter going into the season, but the turnover problems are just a many with him. If it's not 3 fumbles in a game, it's 3 interceptions in a game. It's just so streaky. And honestly, the ups and downs, the ups have not been worth the downs up to this point. And, Ryan, I think it's a good transition. You had a very strong take about how they should handle the quarterback situation going forward. Tell us about that.
Yeah, Heineke took over this game early in the third quarter. Ritter appeared to be pulled from the game, did not appear to be injured in any way. He had a earpiece on, still had the pads on. So it did appear that he was pulled. This looked like a different team with Heineke at the helm, if I may say so. You and I have been Heineke fans prior to the season started. We had a lot to say about him in our breakdown.
Right.
When we were talking about when he did get signed by the Falcons and about his time there in Washington. I think Heineke is a really sort of sneaky start for the Falcons. I think he unlocks a lot of potential for them. It's very much the same way that Will Levis does. Doesn't have the arm that Will Levis does, but I sort of put Heineke and Josh Dobbs maybe in the same situation like we were talking about before. He's not a guy that's going to go out there. Right, exactly. Like you don't have to have a guy like Heineke go out there and win the game for you, but unlike Desmond Ridder, Heineke is not going to go out there and lose the game for you either. He is going to be a guy that's going to give it his all. He's going to put everything he has to win the game out on the line, and I just think that this is the solution moving forward for them to unlock their offense, to make use of Kyle Pitts and of Drake London, who was injured and did not return to this game. I don't know if I have any updates about that. But it was a very back and forth game. There was a really nice Scotty Miller touchdown in the fourth quarter, but not able to overcome just the poise and the power of one Will Levis. You've got some very good clips here to check out on the film. If you want to transition over there, if you don't have anything else, we can get down to it.
Yeah, one more thing before you go to the clip, Ryan.
Sure.
I want to say a sentence, and I just want to watch your face as you react to this. What if I told you in this here football game between the Falcons and the Titans, the lead receiver for the Atlanta Falcons was a man named KhaDarel Hodge? 3 receptions for 75 yards. KhaDarel Hodge, Ryan. What do you think about that?
Everybody, go to your waiver wire right now. Pick up KhaDarel Hodge. Don't look at anybody else. Pick up KhaDarel Hodge. He's an absolute league winner. That's hilarious. I did not realize that.
Boy. Arthur Smith, I love you. I love you forever, Hodge. Arthur Smith. Don't listen to him.
What a fucking dot this play is.
Is this the touchdown? The deep
Yes.
one? All right. Let me just lead it off here. So, setting this up, I mean, the sheer audacity of this throw, Ryan. I want you to know, watching this live, my jaw dropped. There was a
Oh,
ton
same.
a ton of great plays and great games this week, but frankly, in terms of individual plays, I don't think I was more stunned by what I saw on this one. I mean, I knew obviously,
Watching it back, it just makes me
yes,
laugh. This is insane.
Ryan, I'm a draft psycho. I analyze the hell out of these guys. I watch a ton of them, as much as I can, especially when you consider Seattle. They could have been in on quarterback. We didn't really know what we had in Geno, truthfully, yet. Will Levis was an option, and I was watching him intently, and I knew he had this kind of arm talent for sure. I mean, guy's got a cannon, and he's a gamer. I'm using all the superlatives right now, but at the end of the day, he's not afraid to show it off, and he just has confidence that he is gonna hit those throws in those big moments. And yeah, once again, the moment,
the audacity to make this throw, to even try to make this throw. It takes a man who is willing to publicly admit he puts mayonnaise in his coffee to even have the sack to.
But you want to know what I think about that, Ryan? Is the only thing, Ryan, that can beat ketchup is mayonnaise. And
I'm also a mayonnaise boy in my complexion and my condiments.
Patrick Mahomes over there in Kansas City, he loves his ketchup. So maybe this is the kryptonite. We're going to see. I don't know if the Chiefs and Titans play this year, but it's worth noting that there's a duality to those guys. But all right, enough playing around, Ryan. Getting into the play itself.
I want to cut this. Sorry, let me run it back.
Getting it, but enough of that nonsense, right? Getting into the play of itself. I mean, one more time, right? Levis rolls to his right. He's pursued by a defender within steps of him. Not a lot of room to operate.
Two of them.
Just back foot fading away from the defender as they pursue here. Throws across the body.
It's ridiculous.
To the freaking breadbasket. I mean, once again, Westbrook-Ikhine, I mean, he's butt naked on this play. I'll give him that. But I have to say, this was all Will Levis on this throw. Just phenomenal stuff.
100%. I mean, it's got to be such a nightmare, like personnel and scheme wise on the defensive side of the ball. Like, you've already given up two massive plays to D-Hop. Like, okay, let's take away D-Hop. But you got Westbrook-Ikhine, who runs this very interesting double move here. He sort of takes it to the inside of the hash, and then like sort of starts to fade out this way before cutting it like to a true, like almost. And to
credit to him, it's a great route.
100%, it's a great route, and you can even see that like just scheme wise, like you've got so many people to worry about here. You got Derrick Henry who was hit on the play action, and I just want to let's just pause it here. What are the linebackers doing, my man? Where are we going? Where are we looking? Where's our assignment?
No, they're definitely locked in zone
like
here.
This guy's maybe sort of trying to fade back, but you're trying to fade back to cover D-Hop here. But that's the thing, is that you have the option of D-Hop to take away, and I don't think this corner. I can't tell who this is from this clip, but I don't think that he thinks there's any chance in hell that Levis from here slings a dot to the pylon. That like he's thinking, oh man, thank God that Levis is standing where he's standing, because I just got burned by Westbrook-Ikhine.
And I think that's something that kind of, it goes over the heads of just casual NFL fans. And no disrespect to you guys, you're all welcome on the channel, but I don't think a lot of people really understand how difficult of a throw that is to make. Will Levis has an NFL
There's maybe
arm.
two other quarterbacks in the NFL. Yeah, there's maybe two other quarterbacks in the NFL that make this throw.
I mean, there's an argument, no doubt about it. I mean, across your body.
Mahomes can.
It's the combination, certainly. Ryan. Again, fading backward, back foot throw across your body for 60 yards is this? I mean,
Spencer, do you know what this is? This just this just reminded me of something. Do you know what this is? This is what Jets fans thought they were getting taking Zach Wilson second overall after the pro day swindle. This is almost the exact throw that Zach Wilson made on his pro day in no pads.
True.
Over there in Utah at BYU. But Will Levis did it at game speed, 2 guys in his face, off his back foot. This is just a ridiculous throw. And this was for his 4th touchdown of the game.
Yeah, incredible stuff.
The other 3 of which were also bombs.
Pretty wild. It's early to call it, but Titans may have just found them one with this kid, Will Levis.
100%. I mean, there's no way, there's no shot, I think, going forward that you put Tannehill back out there with just how stagnant and dead that offense felt with Tannehill at the helm. There's no way you have a debut like this and you aren't handed the keys for a week or two. Like, imagine just having a few weeks at practice to get some schemes that you really know what this guy is capable of, and let's try to unlock it a little bit. I just think it's really great stuff. I think it's we talked about this a little bit before. It's probably why we didn't see much action from them here on the day of the trade deadline. There was a lot of people suspecting that Derrick Henry might be on his way out, but I suspect a game like this changes a lot of minds in a lot of expensive suits. So there's certainly that. All right, Spencer, this is the other clip that you sent me here. Great defensive play here. Little sack on Ritter prior to getting pulled. What stood out to you about this? What made you send this to me? What made you want to break it down?
The main reason I wanted to talk about this play, Ryan, is because I think the theme of this episode in a lot of ways has been the impact of a dominant interior defensive lineman. What that does for your defense. Mm-hmm. What can a top 5 D tackle do for you? And not trying to say anybody we've talked about today is that, but I'll tell you one thing: Jeffrey Simmons damn sure is. Jeffrey Simmons here, you can see alongside Arden Key on this play. He's stacked up right in between, the center and the guard here. Watch him penetrate this double team so fast off the snap. So fast. They hardly get a hand on him before he's a full step out of the gap there.
Wow, I didn't watch it very closely. I was getting this prior to filming, but yeah, my God, you're not.
Do you have
kidding.
The backside?
He almost kind of gets a. No,
that's okay. I think I misspoke. He's on the edge here. He's on the edge here.
Yep.
Watch him penetrate in between this tackle and the guard here. Explodes off the snap. Immediately smacks the guard back. The tackle can do nothing. He can't even get a hand on Simmons before he's in the backfield here. And that just frees Arden Key. The easy blitz, just following behind the wreckage. I mean, does it get easier than that for a guy like Arden Key? He's a talented player in his own right, but
no.
I mean, Jeffrey Simmons, we talked about in the breakdown, this guy to me is the best defensive tackle in the entire league right now. Aaron Donald is a wonder, an absolute wonder, but at his advanced age at this point, and the way Jeffrey Simmons is playing, Jeffrey Simmons is smack dab in the middle of his prime right now. There, when I was hearing talks about they were gonna maybe tear this thing down, the first player that came to my mind was Jeffrey Simmons, even though he signed that enormous extension. Like, if the Titans were open for business, Ryan, my first thought was, what wouldn't you give up to bring in a player like Jeffrey Simmons?
Oh, no doubt about it. Yeah. Especially like even here, like, you had Bijan coming around on the motion. He gives a nice chip. He gives a nice chip to the edge here, and Bijan Robinson, as I'm sure you were all aware, not a small guy. He gives a really nice chip on him, and really just it helps give momentum. And then as 96 comes crashing in here, then Jeffrey Simmons sort of just manhandles this double team. It's just really incredible stuff.
Go finish it.
Oh, no.
Well, I was just going to say, it's worth noting too. I think that's Jake Matthews on the left side there. He is
96.
number 70 on the offensive line there. Yeah,
I see.
He's keeping an eye on Arden Key, but he's supposed to be playing a little bit of help with this guard. I mean, there's no situation in which you want your guard to be one-on-one with Jeffrey Simmons, even with, Atlanta has some fantastic guards, some of the best in the game.
Right.
But you never want anybody on an island with Jeffrey Simmons generally, and he makes them pay on this play. I think that it's really underlined by the fact that you think about just how star-studded this offensive line is. For Jeffrey Simmons to come out and make a play like this in a huge moment, I mean, he single-handedly ended this.
100%. I mean, just to speak on how fast he got off the ball, like the guard here, 65. I mean, he's got decent footwork here, right? Like he's got a nice wide base, and he just his other foot is like his right foot as he's stepping back is just a little too slow on one of these kick drops here, and it's over. Yeah, it's over. If that's the type of thing, right? Like, it doesn't matter if you're the best guard in the world, but if your technique is, one kick step too late, Jeffrey Simmons is going to make you pay, and that's exactly what happened. It doesn't matter if you're the best guard in the world. That's just the type of player that Jeffrey Simmons is. And just really great scheme, really great play call, great execution. Great stuff. And Ritter is not the type of guy that is going to recognize this immediately. I mean, to be fair, to his credit, there is a up here. There's like an in here, maybe even a 7. That's open. If he can get this ball out fast enough, it's open. But just how quickly they crash, there's no getting that ball out.
And they got Arden Key on the delayed blitz here. But, I mean, I think just the fact that they're able to depend on Jeffrey Simmons to just destroy whatever is in front of him, like, they're able to get creative with how they scheme around him, send guys in his path. When you have just a pure bulldozer, I mean, it's pretty easy to scheme up consistent pressure with what talent you have around him at that point,
For sure. And I'm sorry, I misspoke. This is Drake London that was there at the top of the route, running like just a little bit of a deep hitch, falls down. He is not open. But Spencer, if the survey says there's one guy naked right now, that is a great safety valve right there. A little guy, number 7, named Bijan Robinson. You just got to hit those, especially with pressure in your face. If you can get that ball out, I mean,
that's a whole lot of chaos.
It's too fast.
At Ritter.
It's too fast. Yeah,
I mean, I don't even think you can really tell on film, like up close and personal. That was lightning quick that Jeffrey was in the backfield here. It's hardly any time for him to react at all. Frankly, he's a you want to talk about Halloween? This is that's a frightening proposition to play a full 4 quarters against Jeffrey Simmons.
Well, Spencer, that was 5 games of pretty good coverage. Really phenomenal week of football. There was a lot of games that I thought were really, really fun that we didn't get to cover. The Saints-Colts game was really fun. Some really great stuff there. I also thought that Dolphins-Pats was really fun as well. Giants-Jets was fun for exactly 1 minute, and that was the last minute of the game. There was almost a record-setting 24 punts in that game, but
it was fun when it ended.
That's the Giants and the Jets. It was fun when it ended. Even the Monday night game, I thought to a certain extent was pretty fun. Seems like a get-right game for the Lions. You really love to see that, even though it led to a heartbreaking loss for you in fantasy. Would you like to enlighten the people about what happened to you?
Well, I don't know. It's something I have had problems with since the beginning of time with fantasy, is like, trust your gut, I usually default to trust your gut. It is very rare in which I pull a player out and put another player in prior to my first decision because I always make the wrong choice. But this was one of those rare circumstances, man. I had the decision. I nearly did it. I had James Cook against Tampa, and I had Gus Edwards against Arizona on my bench. And I don't know what to tell you. I saw a pregame report on Thursday night that Vita Vea was going to be ruled out. And I figured, man, they're going to be able to run the ball a lot better against them than normal. So let's roll with the Cook. I mean, he just had 19 last week. Gus Edwards is red hot too, and I should have trusted my gut, man. Arizona can't defend the run to save their lives right now.
Well, and what is even more sad is I think you needed 50 prior to the Lions game, and I think you got 46 from Laporta and
Jahmyr
who was
Gibbs.
the other one? And Jahmyr Gibbs, the breakout. I had some weird like premonition, right? Like I was like getting closer. I don't know if I gave you my curse, Spencer, because the moment that I texted you and said, "Oh my God, you might get your 50 and win," there was not a single point scored.
Yeah, I think I texted you back after that. I said, "Why did you have to say something? Why?" But yeah, that's all right. You take your losses, bro. It's all good.
That's right. Still second place. Yeah, this was a really fun episode. We've got a lot of really exciting stuff planned for content. We want to do some shorter stuff because I know for a lot of people the maybe hour and a half videos aren't the most convenient, especially if you're just checking us out. Why would you want to listen to two guys talk for an hour and a half that you don't know? So we're trying to cut these videos up a little bit and maybe post some smaller ones. But yeah, we've got a lot of exciting content planned. We love the fact that we have some more technology available to us, even though it took us a couple hours to get to the point where we're actually recording this now. Yeah, just really great stuff. A great week of football, and Spencer, it was an absolute pleasure to it was our first trade deadline day working together, and boy was it busy. The pleasure was all mine, and had really lots of fun with you this episode. Any parting thoughts?
Parting thoughts. Happy Halloween, everyone. Don't be safe out
Happy
there.
Halloween.
Have lots of fun, and we'll see you next week, Rumbler Nation.
We'll see everyone next week. Have a good one. Bye-bye.